Kickoff to the final play.
Touchdown!
Your home of the pass. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Beasley Media Group Station. Sports Hub headlines.
Well, the Patriots wrapped up their season with a bang yesterday in Foxborough. First, they won their last game, 23-16 over Buffalo, to finish 4-13 for a second straight season. And then a little over an hour after the game was over, Robert Kraft announced he has fired head coach Jerod Mayo after one season. A search for his successor will begin immediately. According to ESPN, Patriots Hall of Famer Mike Vrabel is on the list of candidates. Also, the Boston Herald, the Boston Globe, and others are reporting offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt was let go, and executive vice president of player personnel Elliot Wolf is still with the team, at least for now. Also, after the win yesterday, the Patriots will pick fourth in the upcoming draft instead of first overall. Last night, Detroit beat Minnesota 31-9 to capture the top seed in the NFC, and Denver clinched the last playoff spot in the AFC with a 38-0 win over Kansas City. The Celtics are 2-1 on a four-game road trip. They lost in Oklahoma City yesterday, 105-92. The Greens scored a total of 27 points in the second half. Oklahoma City's won 15 straight games now. They're 30-5. The Celtic road trip wraps up in Denver tomorrow night, and the Bruins were beaten by the Islanders 5-4 in overtime. Bo Horvat's second goal of the game was the difference. David Pastrnak scored back-to-back goals in the third period just to force extra time. The Bruins have lost 4 in a row now. They're back home to play Edmonton tomorrow evening. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm John Wallach on Boston Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 6:30.
Jerod Mayo is out as Patriots head coach. 98.5 The Sports Hub has it covered all day, on air and online.
Fred, hello. 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 Mm-hmm. Hello. Hello. Hello.
He's naked. He has a sword.
Open him up with a football.
98.5 The Hub. Bruins are back from the West Coast.
Cocaine and hookers. Yes. Na.
Is it okay to use this for the radio?
Yeah. Welcome to the show. You sweet.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. We are Toucher and Hardy, Town Fair Tires Studios. Yes, still. We were brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook.
Nope. Yes? No?
Well, the worst thing is it was a great ride. It would be the worst thing, but they are still our guys.
Town Fair Tire. Hell yeah.
Yeah. 617-779-0985. If I haven't said it, we're brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. I'm sure there are dozens and dozens of people on YouTube because we usually spend this break BSing and things of that nature. But, of course, Jerod Mayo, after the victory yesterday, was fired by the team. And Adam Schefter, before the game, was leaning out on him. And the thing is, I heard what you were playing, Hardy, but it is true. The thing with the thing with the in and out segment is Mortensen used to do it, and like they don't like doing it because they know. And so if Schefter knew, Mayo knew, and Mayo and Van Pelt went into that game saying, we want to win. Buffalo said, by all means win. Please win. Did you guys watch or listen to the end of that game?
Watched.
Yeah, Zolak was just like, oh well, Buffalo doesn't want to win this. Yeah. Like the way they were working the clock and everything else, he was just like they were actively letting him win.
And I don't want to shotgun. We have so many things we're going to talk about today, but since you brought it up just now, we only mentioned it a time or two last week, but it was the conversation of the day on the television broadcast yesterday. Hey, guys, has anyone considered the fact that maybe Buffalo won't let the Patriots lose this game? Maybe the division opponent doesn't want them to have the number one overall pick? And I'm like, yeah, we thought of that too. It didn't get mentioned enough because now you're talking about two teams trying to tank, and it's hard enough to wrap your head around one NFL team purposely trying to lose a game. How about if both are trying to purposely lose a game? And I think that's what happened. And Buffalo more so than the Patriots.
Well, I can justify Buffalo in that, and it's this: is that I'm going to run nothing because I don't want to put anything on tape. Any coach will tell you that. You will have anyone on today, and they'll tell you that. I mean, there's justifications for it. I don't want anyone to get hurt, and I don't want to put anything on tape. Those are two, and I'm not wrong. I mean, that's what it is. But I got to tell you, it was funny that Joe Milton had that good a day yesterday. I did think that was funny.
I will tell you this.
I mean, I'll give it to everyone. That was funny. The amount I crapped on him, it was pretty funny.
Before the Mayo firing, you were right there, man. I got a lot of people reaching out saying, well, what about Joe Milton? Make sure you talk to Fred about Joe Milton.
Yeah.
Turn my phone off with all the notifications.
Kept getting pinged.
Fred, Joe Milton.
Joe Milton, Fred, look at him.
He played very well.
First half,
his
I don't
eighth year of SEC and Big Ten and pro football.
It's like he was touched by a higher force in that first half.
Yes, and that was
my God.
I'm not going to make. It's funnier if I don't say the Bills' defense was. It was. I think he faced more exotic defenses against. University of Tennessee.
However,
that thing was on a rope.
That I'm aware of.
There was that one play where he scrambled away from about 5 guys and fired a touchdown pass that got called back.
Oh, that was
that was amazing.
He has an amazing skill set.
That was Favre.
Yeah.
That was Favre.
That was amazing.
No one that was at preseason, no one that was at Michigan, and no one was at Tennessee would tell you that he could not do those things physically.
There were a couple of times where he just threw the ball as hard as he could just to show people that he could do that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Gun
Dave
show.
Navarro is on the Patriots. But
What?
That's Christian
I know it
Ellis,
says Christian
Fred.
Ellis,
It's
but
Christian
that's
Ellis, Fred.
Dave Navarro.
that's Dave Navarro without the heroin.
That's Dave Navarro with HGH.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was funny.
That
So,
first half, boy, I tell you.
Yeah. There you go. But listen, he's the best. He'll be the greatest because we have to move on. But I did think that was funny, and I was bracing myself because one of the writers, I clicked on the Twitter underneath, and people were like, "Yeah, just flip them for a 2 or 3." And I said, "That's right."
I got that too.
I said, "There you go." The very savvy Patriot fan.
Yeah.
The very savvy Patriot fan.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and flip him for a 2 or 3, because because they got it on tape now. They
Well,
got
you
it
could
on tape
probably still get the number 1 pick if you just trade them your 4th and Joe Milton.
Joe Milton.
Yeah,
right.
you can move up to number
But
1.
you can't do that because now you have like a elite backup. So listen, you mark my
It's
words.
like a Darnold McCarthy situation. You don't mess with that.
Yeah, maybe you do. But
Moment looked a little big for him last night.
well, yeah, he lost the game for them.
Yes.
I mean, there's no question about it. All right, well, listen. Jerod Mayo obviously was fired yesterday, and Alex Van Pelt was fired. Elliot Wolf was not fired. And there haven't been any other firings?
No. Just those 3 things of what we've been told.
So Mayo and Van Pelt had to know before the game they were getting fired. The takeaway from it for me is the same as it always was, is that there was no way if you really liked Jerod Mayo and you thought that he had the qualities to be a head coach, there was no way he was going to succeed this year. You put him in a position where he could not succeed. So there was no way the team was going to win, 7-8 games. There was no way that he was going to look as good as Bill Belichick. He had no support system around him. You had no plan going into the season. You set him up to fail. If I'm Mayo, I'm really pissed, but I've been pissed for so long. I'm almost probably relieved I got fired, but I'm pissed at the Crafts because it's like you thought all this about me, and you thought I had all these intangible qualities and all this stuff, and then you surround me with like a terrible staff. Part of that's on Mayo, I guess, but you surround me with a terrible staff, inexperienced terrible staff in the worst roster in the NFL. We develop your quarterback and, win about the amount of games expected, and now I'm fired. Go ahead.
There are a couple questions there, Fred. Did May develop because of the coaching he got, or did he just develop because of game experience? And I think the answer to this is, it might be more game experience than coaching. The kid's athletic ability was just so good that he got better as the season went on.
Marcus Mariota played yesterday, and he played very well. Marcus Mariota is a very good backup quarterback. He was the number 2 quarterback taken in the draft. He'll never succeed as a starter. Mm-hmm. If he had been given there's guys with a ton of and Mariota's free, fast and strong arm. If there's guys that are incredible athletes, Sam Darnold. There's guys that are incredible athletes. I'll just give you Sam Darnold. Let's do Sam Darnold. He played really bad last night, but Sam Darnold, was on a team that won 14 games. So, and he was the starting quarterback and played very well all season. He has all the athletic ability. He has athletic ability like Drake May. He's in that class, right? Like elite quarterback athlete. And it took Kevin O'Connell to get him to play. So no one on the Jets could coach him up and to play like Drake May. So it's Drake May's talent, but there certainly has to be, and probably not Mayo, but there certainly has to be something to be said about Van Pelt developing him.
I think maybe when the right person gets around him, he will evolve into the quarterback that we all think he can be, but not with this group. Not with this group at all. And obviously the other thing we didn't mention is that the product on the field wasn't necessarily getting better. That's the thing that really cinched it, I think, for the Crafts is the way the Patriots looked in December. Everyone knew that the roster was crap. Everyone knew that they were up against it. They weren't going to be very good. But we were hoping that we'd see positive trends, and we never did.
No, you got the 1 step up, 2 steps back with every good thing that happened.
That Charger game was a slap in the face.
Well, we were attaching ourselves to good Drake May quarters, a series to start a game. And, we were hanging our hopes on things like that. And so those counted as high points. Some of the losses still counted as positive things for it. And then you would have 2 bad losses after that. So they didn't see really anything beyond some nice Drake May performances to think that this was a work in progress. The only thing that's a work in progress right now, I think, is Drake May. That's it. Anything else you can throw out, including Elliott Wolf, which we disagreed about earlier in the season, Fred. I know you said you can't get rid of a GM like that after a year. And
it's a circus. Your team's a circus. You fired yes. Bill Belichick to bring your handpicked successor in. You gave your handpicked successor 1 year and then got rid of him with no support system. So that's a circus. That's as bad as any Jet. That's as bad as any Lions. It's as bad. Your organization's just as clown showish as that.
Yeah.
You got a good quarterback. That's great, and that helps. But and then if you fire your general manager on top of all of that, and then you're rebooting again, because I got news for you, and we'll get into it. A lot of these can't miss coaching candidates that apparently, like Vrabel, that are available, listen, he's playing chess. Be careful a little bit with this Vrabel thing. Go ahead, because you bring in another group and they suck next year. Oh boy. Go ahead.
Clearly, and we had Bert Burr sit in here on Friday and talk about the opportunity presented to the Crafts. The way they are doing things, promoting from within, having a certain structure in the organization isn't working without Bill Belichick here. It wasn't working with Bill Belichick here. They have a chance to reset everything and figure out a different way and update their organization. But one more quick thing. You know what other organization was a clown show not too long ago? The Houston Texans. They fired head coaches in their first year in back-to-back years. Remember David Cullen and Lovie Smith? They both got fired in back-to-back years not that long ago. They blew everybody out of there. They brought in Nick Caserio, and look what happened. They are an organization.
But they kept Caserio during the firings.
I guess what I'm saying is Caserio came in during that. I don't think he was there when they hired Cullen. I think
he was there from at least one of the firings.
But I guess what I'm saying is that organization looked about as clown show-ish as possible.
They had
and here
talent.
They are 3 years later.
But they had talent.
They drafted well.
Yes, and so they had talent.
With a new GM, with a guy who knew what he was doing. I'm not convinced Elliott Wolf knows what he's doing.
That's fine, but if you
And I'm not keeping that guy in charge of my draft board.
Well,
Robert Kraft has to take the extra step, either bring in someone over Wolf like he had all those other years when Belichick was in charge of the draft, or get rid of him altogether.
No, you have to yes, you have to change the way that you do business. Right. You have to yes, as everyone has said, they don't have like an analytics department. They have far less people in the front office in the organization for whatever reason.
So getting rid
than
of
any other team. But you can do that with keeping Elliott Wolf in that position. You can give him the resources that he needs. It seems like this is what it is. Belichick ran the organization unlike any other organization in football. It stopped working. So you fired him and you brought in a guy that you know and like. Promoted a guy that you know and like. And then you brought in a GM that you like, and then you kept the structure the exact same way as it was with Belichick, and then you expected things to change. Look, Mayo maybe should have been fired, but they did not. There was no way he was going to succeed. Starting in the offseason, there was no way Mayo was going to succeed. And I'm not convinced if Mayo, in knowing Jerod Mayo like a little bit, and knowing what the Kraft saw in Mayo and what the players saw in Mayo, I'm not convinced Mayo can't be a good coach in the NFL. There was just no way it was going to work here.
Don't forget, Mayo interviewed back-to-back years.
Well, that's apparently what scared
other
Kraft.
Intervisions wanted him, and Kraft specifically had to write it into his contract that he was the next guy, so he wouldn't interview other players. Other organizations wanted him. He wasn't a disaster. He came in when he wasn't ready. He clearly was not ready for this and was not handed a winning deck of cards either.
We talked about it from the very beginning. They got him D-list coordinators. He had no coaching experience. They brought in one guy who's a jabroni from the Giants to sit there and help.
Ben McAdoo.
There was no one that knew what they were doing. They have no infrastructure in the front office. They gave him no opportunity. This is entirely on the Crafts, and I don't think it's on Mayo. I don't think it's on Wolf. I think it's on the Crafts.
Right. I don't know that Mayo will ever be, a coach or a good coach, but they knew that going in. That, and I talked about this earlier in the season too. It's like, he wasn't really able to pick his own staff. Even if he had been given that opportunity, how would he know who to go after? He's only been with the Patriots. He doesn't have this vast wealth of experience and this huge body of knowledge to draw from.
Were they saying that during the Patriots game yesterday about how you need to have?
I think somebody did say that,
okay, so it was during the Patriots game.
But all he's known is the Belichick system.
Right. And then how would he know? That's right. That was the point that was made, is like, how would he know? And now...
Well, I argued about this with going back even before this show with like Zolak and Bertrand. I think you and I may have argued about it too, whether or not he had, the requisite skill set to be a head coach. And I said, well, just being like a good player in the NFL and, working as an assistant coach for a few years. And some people said, yeah, that's enough. That's all you need. I know head coaches get the job without ever head coaching anywhere before. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does. It just didn't seem like this was the case with Jerod.
Well, the thing is that the reason the Crafts hired him is they saw in the building the respect that he had from the players, and they wanted an attitude change from Belichick that wasn't working. That's why they did it. But then what got in the Crafts' way is they really have no experience. Thank you. You agree, John? They have no experience building a foundation of a team.
They were handed it. Parcells had something set. They got rid of, Pete Carroll came in. He did not work, but then Belichick laid a huge foundation for them for all those years. Robert Kraft, good for him. He got out of his own way and fired a guy who wasn't ready, and it wasn't working with him. So he fired him after 1 year. That takes some savvy to do that. But now he needs to make the next step. He needs to change his organization.
Yes.
He's only halfway there.
Yes.
He needs to do more than what he just did yesterday to turn this thing around.
Well, he certainly needs to change the way the organization does business. And for all we know, Elliott Wolf has been telling him that all year. Is like, I can't
maybe
operate this way.
Maybe that's why he stayed.
Dude, I'm telling you, put yourself in these guys' positions. Like you couldn't succeed. They had to be telling Kraft, what's going on? You know, by the way, Elliot Wolf's didn't spend any money. He's got $130 million in cap space. Yeah. And the number 4 overall pick. I mean, the guy looks like he whiffed in last year's draft outside of May. But he didn't go crazy in free agency and pick up a bunch of duds. I mean, they brought it down to the bolts, and now they're building it back up.
And it's interesting too, because I was thinking about Jalen Polk last night after they fired Alex Van Pelt and Jerod Mayo. Polk, who was good, he was a good receiver in college. He was worth a second-round draft pick, but was he hamstrung by the people who are in charge?
I don't know. There's two. Well, Dunze isn't so great, but the third receiver from Washington had a much better year than Polk. Polk might be the worst of the 3.
But I can see Wolf selling that to the Kraft, saying if you get rid of this coaching staff, Polk will be much better next year.
Yeah, I mean, look at this, dude.
Why else would he stay?
You whiff on second-round picks.
For the reason that Fred said, it's bad enough that Robert's hand-picked successor to Bill Belichick is a one-and-done quarterback. If you blow out the GM too, now you're looked upon as a clown show. They don't want to look. They don't want to look like clowns. They don't want to look to be in complete disarray.
I think this team already looks like this team already is looked
Firing
at
the
that
GM
way.
would make it look even more.
And what gives you And then what gives you any confidence that the guy that they're going to bring in is going to succeed? I mean, the Elliot Wolf, they knew and picked what makes you get. We do this with all the teams. What gives you any indication that the Crafts would all of a sudden be able to turn around and go in this offseason with all the competition going on, get a guy and put him in and have him create the structure that's needed?
What my point is, Fred, there is nothing on their resume that tells me that they can go out, execute a search for a GM and hire someone outside the organization. But what I can tell you is promoting from within has not worked.
I'm telling
Kraft
you,
has given that much up by firing the guy he picked to replace Belichick.
I'm also telling you that Elliot Wolf didn't spend any money in the offseason, and you've given him one draft. And in that draft, he got you a quarterback. But it was everyone wanted him to take the quarterback. No, they didn't. The Giants would have loved to have traded up.
No, give it up to him.
Minnesota would have loved to have traded up.
He didn't trade the pick. He heard that a lot of people wanted to trade up and draft this kid. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to draft this
is
kid.
That what happened? He said he heard everyone wanted him, so that's why he took him.
The point is, he had a high draft. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but I do think that it's that if you're an owner and you go, I know this guy really well, I'm going to put him in charge of the organization. He actually has experience doing this, not at this position, but doing this. We still have to build an infrastructure around it. We know that things are completely. There's no way Elliot Wolf hasn't gone to them. Hello, look at what these other teams are doing. I think that it would be a little premature, but and you can't get in the high. Believe me, it's the really bad organizations that just get in the habit of firing every year, firing. But listen, Mayo is gone, and I feel bad for the guy. I really do feel bad for Jerod Mayo. He had no opportunity. There was no chance for him to succeed. So, we've all been in those situations. You're put into a situation where it's destined to fail, and then there's no support system, and there you go. All right, we'll be back in just a moment.
More. best way to listen to Toucher and Hardy?
Well, you're going to have to spend $40.
Cough it up, and let's get back to Toucher and Hardy on the Sports Hub.
Did you catch the game last night?
Hey, we're Toucher and Hardy. What happened last night is brought to you by Leonard Hair Transplant Associates, where your hair doesn't have to be a game of what happened. So change your lettuce and change your life with Dr. Matthew Lopresti at 1-800-GET-HAIR. Hardy, big doings with the Patriots yesterday, starting with the game.
Yeah, we can start with the game. I was thinking about that. It's like, oh, yeah, they did play a football game yesterday as the Patriots were home to take on the Buffalo Bills. And it really depends how much you want to focus on that and how much you want to focus on what happened afterward. You tell me. What do you want to do? You want to do a little game?
A little rundown of the game because it was humorous.
Give me some of those Joe Milton highlights.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I've been talking about on this show,
I got Milton highlights for you.
Two receivers stacked on a high snap and a fake inside the catch. He's going to run it in, waltzing in untouched to the end zone, and then a backflip from Joe Milton with the exclamation mark. Touchdown, Patriots.
Good energy here to start this football game for the offense after Drake May comes out.
Yeah, they benched Drake May. He had one attempt.
Not after getting sacked, though.
No.
It took that one front side hit, and then they got him out of there.
Yeah, they said, we're not playing Drake May.
Those tackles remain incredible.
He's too precious an asset. We played him all year, but we can't play him in the last game. And then so they said, and then Jerod Mayo said, okay, well, I know I'm getting fired. We'll play Joe Milton, and we'll open up the offense and let him ride.
That's right. Take it into the end zone yourself there, Joe. Do your backflip and go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and air the ball out a little bit too?
Takes a high snap, drops back on second down and on short 4. He's rolling to his right, chased by a pair of Bills. Throws on the gun. The pass is going to be caught at the 20 by an open Booty who's going to trot into the right, into the end zone. Touchdown, Patriots.
Did I call it or did I call it? Get him outside the pocket. You've got one. You've got the first touchdown. I got the second one. Man, Milton.
Yeah.
Man.
Wow. I'm speechless.
I think he was.
All right, you want to start hearing some tweets?
Oh, about Joe Milton?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you got?
Trade Drake May for a generational draft haul and build around Joe Milton.
Good.
If the Patriots play their cards right.
Don't read the obvious ones.
If the Patriots play their cards right, they could build a powerhouse with the draft capital. They probably could get 2 to 3 first-round picks and a bunch of other picks and our players. It's the only way. Let's see. Only one conversation, trade him, then trade. This is a guy talking about, this is a fan of Miami. Only one conversation, trade Tyreek Hill. Then trade for Joe Milton or J.J. McCarthy. I'm getting in a second and a third for Tyreek. I'm getting his third and fourth for Tua. So you're replacing Tua with Joe Milton. And there you go. There's I could read you all maybe throughout the show. Ryan, if you could grab me some reactions from Twitter on Joe Milton.
Yeah.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Draft the best pass. This is what the Patriots need to do. Draft the best pass rusher at 4. Trade Milton for a third rounder.
Yeah.
Problem solved. Period.
Okay.
The problem is solved.
The problem and
your organization's back on track.
With Joe Milton, what problem?
Drops back to 3rd and 24. Milton
Throw it.
Backs up, rolls to his left. Another flag as he's chased by a defender. Now a second Bill into the picture. Milton spins around, runs out of an ankle tackle, plants and fires downfield to the pylon, and the pass is caught by Bob Douglas.
It's coming back,
though.
though.
Not stand, but what a play on the escape and the throw by Milton for a touchdown that won't stay on the board.
Did you see how hard he threw that?
Holding, number 70 offense.
Oh, there you go.
10-yard penalty from the previous
Having
spot.
himself another
Replay.
day.
Third
These are
down.
easy decisions moving forward regarding some of these picks and your 2 tackles. Nightmare position for the team.
Yeah, I was watched this Patriots game more closely than I have in a very long time. It was pretty funny, but I was driving at the end of the game, and Zolak's tune changed remarkably with frustration that Buffalo was actively trying to lose the game. Mm-hmm. They did call the timeouts before the 2-minute warning, but Scott was getting, because they wanted the first pick. So, and that was the conversation. Obviously, at that point was keeping the first pick in the draft, and Zolak was calling it. He was like, "Well, Buffalo is actively now trying to lose this game."
Which we only mentioned a couple of times last week, but that was always in the background lurking, whether or not Buffalo was going to allow their divisional opponent to get the number 1 overall pick. And no, they did not allow that to happen.
And now with 91 seconds to go, Bills out of timeouts. And they're out of downs if they don't convert here. 3 receivers to the left, 1 to the right, a back to the right of White. 5 men up on the line for the Patriots. They're going to rush 4. A throw to the right, it's tipped, and it lands incomplete. With Christian Ellis, the closest player for the Patriots defense, and not a Bill anywhere near that ball as it plummeted to the turf.
Yeah, they were pretty frustrated at the end. I mean, it sounded like they were losing a playoff game. It really did. I mean, it was like the Patriots had lost a playoff game.
Seriously, that is the call from Bob Socci as the opponent, the team playing the Patriots, turns the ball over on down.
And New England is going to take over with 86 seconds to go in the fourth quarter with a 23-16 lead over the Bills and a 4th win.
Not exactly joyful.
Because the whole lead up to that was Scott calling that Buffalo was going to deliberately let stuff happen, and then when it was started to come to fruition and Buffalo was trying to lose, the frustration and sadness started seeping in. And apparently there's some guy who gets drunk every game that's in front of him. He's been there for 15 years. And and Scott was very frustrated at him for celebrating. It was pretty funny. Ryan, these are all things that can be found. About the last 5 minutes of the game, of clock time. So if you can get those tweets, I should have done it myself, but if you can get those tweets and some of Scott, it is pretty funny throughout the show if we could play. Well, just how not frustrated and not surprised, but disappointed the two of them were by Buffalo tanking.
Maybe you hear in Bob's voice some trepidation. He doesn't want to celebrate the win quite yet. What does the final call sound like?
We'll snap it one more time against the Buffalo Bills in the season finale with a 23-16 lead over the Bills on the verge of victory that will move them from the number 1 spot this spring in the draft to number 4.
Oh, no. He says no, it's all about the draft. It's really not joyous at all. And the crowd is very, very quiet.
Milton drops to the knee, and he completes his NFL debut with a win over the Bills. The fans ascending the aisles here at Gillette Stadium. Well, now Milton's going to settle back under center one more time.
All right.
Yeah, sparse, by the way. Not exactly a full house at the end of the game.
Shush. We don't talk about it.
Ryan gave me some tweets. This is actually a good one. Patriots coaching staff, okay, Joe, just take it easy out there, nothing crazy. And then there's a picture of Tom Brady looking determined. No, the coaching staff did not tell Joe Milton to take it easy. The coaching staff was saying, we're going balls out in this game, and Buffalo said, I don't want to make a lot of excuses. But Buffalo did say, okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm. You go nuts. Well, here's what we're doing, and you do whatever you want. And I can understand if you're a Patriots fan that being very frustrating, incredibly frustrating.
Yep,
is because look, Milton's an athletic freak. He played great. He's the greatest, right? I could see it being very frustrating that your practice squad quarterback came out there and was going full speed while everyone else was just standing around. That sucks.
Yep.
It sucks.
It does suck.
It sucks. If it was Drake May, I would almost like it because I'd be like the kid's going into the offseason on a high note.
Right.
But you took your practice squad quarterback, and I know you're all going to rub yourselves all offseason about it and then think you're trading him for a third-round pick, and God bless you. Maybe you will.
I'm not trading that guy.
Absolutely. That's something else I heard. But I will tell you this. I wish they got the number 1 overall pick for us because it's makes the offseason a lot more fun. But then they fired Mayo, so I guess it's a push. But it had to. I'll ask you, John, because you're the Patriots fan. It had to suck to see Joe Milton going full.
He's running around like it's the Super Bowl. I mean,
yeah, baby.
I'm watching him run around like crazy. I'm like, what?
Full hardo.
The worst.
They're rushing 4.
The worst. It's an exhibition game. It's like the Pro Bowl. That's what this game was like. They're not blitzing. They're not trying to. They're just all right. Just let's get nobody hurt. Let's get nobody
hurt and not put anything on film.
We don't want anything bad to happen. We don't want to give anything away to our opponents, which is going to be Denver. We don't want Denver to know any about this. And there you have Joe Milton going nuts and leading the Patriots to a win, which just kills you in the offseason. So many other options were opened up to you if you had the first overall pick as opposed to 4. The haul you could get for a trade has gone from an A+ to a C- because of this idiot and running around like he owns everything.
And that's exactly why it was so funny to me. Is because if it's May, you're like, all right,
perfect.
Like hooray, this is our quarterback.
At least one good thing happened out of this year. Okay, we won. That's bad. But my God, here's this kid who, despite having nothing around him, is succeeding. No, we have Joe Milton, 6'5", 240, doing friggin' backflips in the end zone. Isn't this awesome? No, it's not awesome.
A kid who Michigan didn't want to keep around.
I don't want the 4th overall pick in the draft. That does nothing for me.
No,
does nothing for this organization.
But then the stages of grief started setting in, and then what is it when you compromise or you try to bargaining, where you're like, well, the good news is
we got a great edge rusher coming to us in the draft. Amen. Awesome.
No,
guys,
but and the quarterback position set for the next 12 years.
He's been waiting ever since Michigan didn't play him. He just knew he's been waiting and waiting.
Man, I've been waiting to hit a backflip in the game, period, for at least, I want to say, whenever the USC player hit the backflip in the end zone, I've been wanting to do it ever since that moment, but 2 years prior to that moment.
Well, that's what's important.
I feel great for you, Joe. Good for you.
Joe, cool.
That's awesome.
Felt cool.
Yeah.
Everybody had my back today. Just like every other quarterback that comes through here, the team have Drake's back, and today had my back. So
there you go.
Bailey's happy.
So you led that Tennessee team that made the college football playoff this year with a kid to 4 losses last year. All right, very good. Very good.
So what happened after the game, obviously, is what we'll talk about next.
Yes, we will have that. Here are the headlines.
Sports Hub headlines.
Patriots beat Buffalo 23-16. They finished 4-13, and then after the game, fired head coach Jerod Mayo. Also, offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt is reportedly out as well. Mike Vrabel is reportedly expected to get an interview for Mayo's job. Celtics and Bruins both played yesterday. Both lost. Green lost in Oklahoma City 105-92. They wrap up their road trip in Denver tomorrow night. And David Pastrnak scored twice, but the Bruins lost in overtime to the New York Islanders last night 5-4. They host Edmonton tomorrow evening. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your drive-through oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, now open in Franklin, Billerica, and Peabody. I'm John Wallach of Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 7 o'clock.
You're listening to Toucher and Hardy on the Sports Hub. Toucher and Hardy.
Such an fantastic explosion.
98.5, the Sports Hub.
Hey, we're Toucher and Hardy, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Boston Calling is getting ready to announce this year's lineup, so make sure you're signed up for text notifications so you'll be one of the first to know. Visit bostoncalling.com. Make sure you're listening to the show this week for a chance to score a pair of wristbands before they go on sale. The lineup announcement is when? Today or tomorrow?
Later this morning.
There you go. The Big Boston Calling Summer Festival. All right. Jerod Mayo was fired as the Patriots head coach. They did it right after the game. So far, it's New Orleans, the Jets, and the Patriots. We will keep you up to date on all things that are going on with that coaching search. Real quick, I do want to do this. I just want to tell you the playoff games and when they are. Houston hosts the Chargers at 4:30 on Saturday. Houston in that coveted 4:30 Saturday slot, per usual. Baltimore is hosting Pittsburgh at 8 o'clock on Saturday. Then you have Buffalo, Denver, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Philadelphia hosting Green Bay at 4:30. Tampa hosting Washington at 8 o'clock. And the Los Angeles Rams hosting Minnesota at 8 o'clock Monday night.
Some real games. Wild card weekend. Baltimore, Pittsburgh.
Yes. But yes. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
There'll be a lot of juice to it. I don't know how it's going to go for Pittsburgh, but
it's going to be a very physical game. That much I can tell you.
You said right after the game, it was quick. It was about 80 minutes after the game ended where Adam Schefter had the announcement that the Patriots had fired Coach Jerod Mayo. It wasn't long after that. A statement was issued by the team. Obviously, this is something that we'll be talking about today. How long had they planned on doing this? How long was this in the works? The statement for Robert Kraft was a lengthy one. I could read it myself, but we thought it better to have a dramatic reading of it by somebody with just a better voice and someone who has a better feel.
James Earl Jones, R.I.P.
Nice.
That would have been nice. We couldn't get him this morning, but we got the next best thing.
Statement from Patriots chairman and CEO Robert Kraft.
Yeah, there's no way that was
How
happening.
much more of this is there?
No, there's no more. All right.
Okay,
Suffice it to say, he struggled. All right, very good. Joe, go ahead.
What's up, guys? Good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
I think Mayo already knew he was going to get fired.
Yes, absolutely.
Before that game started.
Absolutely.
And he kind of stuck it to the Krabs because he just cost us three spots in the draft pick. And I said it from the beginning. Even when they had beaten the Cincinnati Bengals, Cincinnati, historically they don't start good in the beginning of the year. So I knew that was just a facade. I also think, and I've said it so many times, this stage is too big for Jerod Mayo. I mean, it's like these quarterbacks that come in. I think we finally do have a quarterback in Drake May, but when you're coming in and trying to fill up the shoes of the greatest quarterback of all time and the greatest coach of all time, that's a lot of pressure in itself. But Bob Kraft, to me, he's the one to blame for all of this. Mr. Kraft, you're the one who put the product on the field. I mean, Jerod Mayo, it looked like he was going to cry every time in his interviews. He just didn't have it. But I do feel bad for the guy because Bob Kraft, you can't change, crap. That's what we have. We have crap on the field. So I don't care who you are. You ain't going to win more than 3-4 games.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Listen, it's all on the Krafts. They screwed up. They didn't pivot from Belichick correctly. And it's not hiring Jerod Mayo. It's everything. They are running their operation like they did with Belichick, and Belichick couldn't succeed running that operation that way anymore. According to everyone we talked to, it's an antiquated front office. It's an antiquated way of doing business. There's just simply not enough personnel.
Which is why it's important to remember that Kraft's job isn't done. Give him credit for understanding that he made a bad mistake and correcting it. But you also have to follow through and change the way things run. You have to change everything.
But I do not give him credit for not realizing when you're in meetings with the 31 other guys that do this, that your system of operation is completely antiquated and that you put a guy in position to coach that you like to fail. There was no way Jerod Mayo, with those coordinators and this team, was going to have success. There wasn't. And, there's people like, oh, he sucked with the media. Oh, get out of here with the media. Stop that. And if that was part of the factor, then they're real morons.
He wouldn't have needed a ton more, though, in order to keep the job for another year. If they had figured out ways to get, I would say, 2 more legitimate wins, not counting yesterday. If they had finished this season like a real 6-11.
But then they would have been better than they were with Belichick, and that just wasn't going to happen. Belichick's the best coach of all time. On the field, Belichick's still, an incredible defensive mind. They just weren't going to be as good. They weren't. They have no talent, but they have a quarterback now. They have a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, it's a good point, Fred, because for all the expectations on Jerod Mayo to be a good defensive head coach, was he going to be better than Bill Belichick?
No, he wasn't going to be better. Yeah, him in a rookie defensive coordinator were not going to be better than Bill Belichick.
It's just looking to have the team look better, not get flattened by the Chargers, not lose to Anthony Richardson like that. I mean, there are little checkpoints along the way where you look and go, oh, my God, they look terrible today. And if they had just looked a little bit better, fans would have thought, okay, I can stomach finishing 4-13 again, but at least the team looks different. They look that things are trending in a positive direction.
Yeah.
And they never did.
No, and they were never going to this year. They just weren't. It was a bunch of guys who had never done it before, all collected together, and that wasn't going to work. And there's a lot of decisions that have to be made beyond the head coach. And I understand keeping Elliott Wolf. I do understand it. But you got to change the way you do your business, and you got to figure it out. Maybe you hire an independent, like, these teams do. You hire an independent, like, group to come in and oversee the hiring process. I mean, really, maybe you do. Someone's got to teach you how to operate like a current NFL team. And I don't know who you're going to have teach you how to do it. But someone's got to come in and help you fill out this organization.
Well, it starts from hiring a GM that has been somewhere else other than with you.
Yeah, well, you got to hire another GM. They're still going to have to hire everyone else that they need because it goes well beyond the GM. It's the way that you scout. It's the way that you do analytics. It's everything. And according to everyone we talk to, it's bare bones around there, and it's not going to help anyone unless if you bring in a new GM, you're asking a new GM to hire an awful lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. We'll take a couple of calls, and we'll get into all the Mike Vrabel talk and ask the question, why?
In at 4-13 yesterday by getting a touchdown run and a TD pass from rookie quarterback Joe Milton in a 23-16 win over Buffalo in Foxborough. And then after the game, the fun really began when Robert Kraft fired head coach Jerod Mayo after just one season. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt was also reportedly let go, but Executive VP of Player Personnel Elliott Wolf remains in charge, at least for now. ESPN and others are reporting this morning that Patriots Hall of Famer Mike Vrabel will be among the many who were expected to interview from Mayo's former job. In other NFL news, Detroit beat Minnesota 31-9 to wrap up the top seed and the bye in the NFC playoffs. Out in Oklahoma City, the Thunder won their 15th regular season game in a row yesterday. They beat the Celtics 105-92. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 33 points, and the home team held a fully staffed Celtics squad to 27 second-half points. The Green are 2-1 on a 4-game road trip. They play in Denver tomorrow night. And despite a pair of goals from David Pastrnak, the Bruins lost their fourth in a row last night, 5-4 in overtime to the New York Islanders. Bo Horvat, the game winner for the home team. The Bruins are back home to play Edmonton tomorrow evening. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Rodenheiser and their expert remodel team. Schedule a free consultation today to redefine your space. Rodenheiser.com/remodel. Rodenheiser Home Services, nice people, great service since 1928. I'm John Wallach at Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 7:30.
Jerod Mayo is out. Who will be the next coach? For up-to-date news and reaction, 98.5 The Sports Hub has you covered on air and online. Fred describes himself in 7 words.
A guy in tights and a cape.
And Hardy with blunt honesty.
I am not known as Mr. Fun.
Dutcher and Hardy continues on the Sports.
Future starting quarterback as he tried while the rest of everyone else stopped. And you went from 1 to 4, and then they fired Jerod Mayo after the game. Let's go to Gary. Gary, go ahead, sir.
Guys, I mean, Joe Milton should go down as one of the biggest villains in Boston sports history. Yesterday, I'm in the game. Every time, first of all, when he first scored, the only people cheering were Bills fans. Everybody else was like, what's going on here? Okay, that's great. He got one touchdown. Then he goes out and he scores again. I mean, read the room. Everybody in the stands, there was a big gasp. Oh, my goodness. I mean, it's just unbelievable. He'll go down like a Bill Buckner, hopefully, when the generational talent goes as number one that we missed out on.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I did because if you are listening to the show for the first time because of the Mayo situation or what happened yesterday, when they drafted Joe Milton, I had known about. He played 6 years of college, played in quotation 6 years of college football. He was on Michigan and then they didn't want him anymore, and he transferred to Tennessee, and everyone in Tennessee hated him. So I was very hard on the pick, and I thought the pick was funny because I've seen him play really poorly. So yesterday when he was playing so well, I did think of John and the fans and thought, oh no, this is no good for the Patriots.
I felt the same way as that guy who just called in.
Because it was a guy.
Read the room. That is a perfect explanation.
He's a great athlete, and he played really well, but he was playing really well while no one else was trying. And it was, and maybe he'll be a good NFL quarterback. I don't mean to excuse my clowning on Joe Milton for all this time. He really did play good yesterday. But if I'm a Patriot fan, I'm like, oh no. I do want to do this. Let's play a little bit of Socci and Zolak at the end of that game. Because while Mayo did get fired, and we'll get into Vrabel and everything else, we have Mike Reiss coming up. Just to let you know, because I told you guys, this season's been hard to watch. Let's be honest. Like, it's hard. I watch football all day on Sunday. You know, congratulations, give me a crown. But I got to be honest with you, I was not locked into every Patriots game from tip to tail. I was watching games that were good on occasion. I couldn't well, first of all, the 1 o'clock game sucked yesterday, but I could not take my eyes off of this. I could not take my eyes off of it. But in the end, I had to go do something with my kids, so I had the game on in the car. It was a funeral procession with these two, Socci and Zoe.
Yeah, it was kind of I want to say like a systematic realization of what was going on.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, thank you. It took me long enough to say it. But
well, I couldn't even.
They're not pushing the ball downfield. They're not pushing the ball downfield.
Talking about Buffalo.
down 4, and the other team be slinging it, going hurry. They run hurry up all game. Now they're not going hurry up. Hey, let's huddle, take our time.
3rd down and 7.
Okay, all right. Start to get an inkling of what's going on here.
Zolak in the beginning of the game, based on how we played, I was watching on TV at that point, was like pretty excited about Joe Milton and like what everything he was doing. And why shouldn't he be? He's like incredibly athletic plays. But then I listened to like the last, let's say 15 minutes of the game, 5 minutes of real time. It was occurring to Zolak and Socci that, oh no, Buffalo hasn't been trying, and now they're actively attempting to lose. And Zolak is starting to realize, he's realized all game they're actively trying to lose, but now it's getting egregious to Zolak. And Soci's just sad.
Well, Buffalo right there, too. Threw a check down, knowing it's not going to pick up, gave the Patriots the ball at the 50.
5:16 to go, 4th quarter. Patriots 20, Bills 16.
Pissed.
I mean, Zolak sees it. He's like, they're actively trying not to win this game.
5-yard penalty, 2nd down.
Lynette, the referee, and another penalty on Buffalo's 2nd. Of the series.
We're going to win. We're going to win this game. Buffalo's just... Now Mike White's in the game, just their approach. I mean, I know they were called timeout there before the end of the half, but they weren't really going anywhere.
The disappointment, you would think they were losing a playoff game. It was the last 2 minutes of the AFC Championship game, and they were about to lose. Just the realization that Buffalo was actively trying to lose.
So it's Buffalo doing it, but we all like to have a villain.
So what do we say on the station? Is it the Joe Show?
The Joe Show.
At 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston.
Welcome to the Joe Show.
Well, there's been kind of a Joe Show today here at Gillette, starring Joe Milton.
That's right. And then the Joe Show is who you should be mad at.
2 back-to-back stud throws by Milton. If they end up winning this, don't be mad at the staff. Be mad at Joe Milton.
Yeah. That was very, very clairvoyant, Zoe, because that's exactly the way I feel this morning.
It was funny.
I'm not blaming anybody but that kid Milton.
And he's kidding, obviously. Joe Milton, congratulations. You had a great day in the NFL. You got to feel really good today. You did what you were supposed to do. You won the game. No, obviously, we're not idiots. I mean, like, good for Joe Milton. But it was, as a fan of bad teams in general, it was something I could see, like, yeah.
You're going to lose.
Yeah, it's like when the Jets to lose their Trevor Lawrence pick. Like when they won, they recovered a fumble in the end zone or something. They were trying while the other team wasn't. The whole Joe Milton thing, and I was getting, like stuff from people like, oh yeah, Fred, what do you think about this? And I thought, oh no, you're not going to be happy about this tomorrow. This is like banging a hot chick and the next day seeing she's full of sores. Go ahead. I can't follow that up. What are you doing?
Let that one marinate.
Yeah, let's let that one sit.
When the light of day hits,
I don't want to say anything after that.
When the light of day hits, this is not going to seem as great a victory as it was the day before.
Wow.
Again,
but it's the ultimate kick in the nuts when the team that's been losing all season long, the one game you want them to lose, they can't lose. They can't even lose the right way.
But also, it's that you played May one series, and then you fired your coach. So, like, if May would have played, this is my opinion, and you could disagree. It's not a fact. If I'm a Patriot fan, the way I'm watching it is, if May plays really well, Mayo gets the win, Mayo's the coach, you're like, okay, they're going out on a high note, which is what you wanted. Instead of your practice squad quarterback putting on a show and the other team actively trying to lose, and then you fire your coach. Go ahead.
And this has happened, and we've discussed this on the show before. When the Patriots do something really well to the detriment of their future, there's always this part of me that goes, yeah,
yes,
look at,
yes.
yeah. And then you wait a beat, and you're like, oh, that's right. Yesterday, there was none of that. Yesterday, I knew in real time Joe Milton scrambling around and throwing bullets everywhere and making plays. And at the moment he was doing that, I was thinking, oh, God, no. Exactly. That's exactly. And there was no, look at that. There was none of that.
Because it gave you
because I knew exactly in real time. There was no big fandom.
No upside.
There was no
upside.
adrenaline surge. Look at that. That's awesome. I knew immediately what that meant.
No, there was absolutely no upside to it. You got nothing. There's no look at Drake May, and
this whole season
he's
is
riding
beating it out of me.
No.
I understood in real time what was going on and how much that screwed the team that I was rooting for.
You didn't play the future of your team, and you fired your head coach. There was nothing to be gained from that, and it all happened. DC, go ahead.
Hey, man. Hey, fellas. Hey, big up Hardy, man. Good placement, man. You guys sound great in the morning, man. But I'm calling because, you're talking about blaming, the quarterback, but I mean, he's not calling his own plays. We only ran the ball 3 times the whole damn game. They're letting him throw the ball across all around the field, man. So I mean, we can't really blame.
I'm not blaming Joe Milton at all. If I'm Joe Milton, hell yeah, I'm trying to be a professional athlete.
What do you think Joe Milton did for his career yesterday? Did he do anything for it?
No.
Yes.
I think he did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. I think
it didn't hurt, certainly. No, if I'm Joe Milton did exactly what Joe Milton was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I just, in fact, said, DC, there's no way. I'm not blaming Joe Milton in that Joe Milton did anything wrong. First of all, if you don't know, I've crapped on Joe Milton all year. And since they've drafted him.
I agree with you. I watched the kid in college. He sucked.
Right. But so it was funny to me that the guy I had been bagging on was putting on this show in a game where the other team wasn't trying, and it was going to cost them the first overall pick. But of course, TC, Joe Milton should be proud of himself. If I'm Joe Milton, I feel good today. Absolutely.
We should be crapping on the coaching staff for not running the ball.
Well, no, the coaching staff was sticking it. They knew they were getting fired, and they threw it all around, and they saw that. But let's be honest. They saw Buffalo was going to let them throw the ball all over the place, and they said fine, and then they did it. What they did is, in Mayo, if you listen, Mayo had his best post-game press conference of the year last year. They said, do you think that you did everything to win? You didn't by not playing Drake May? And he said, we didn't play Drake May and we won. And I know, if now thinking back on that press conference, he knew he was going to get fired, and he saw what Buffalo was doing defensively, and they went, okay, we're gonna take advantage of everything that they're doing, and we're just gonna throw it all over the field. And there you go. And if they're going to let us do it, they're going to rush forward. They're not going to blitz. I mean, we can ask someone smarter than me, like what the blitz rate was in that game, or like how much pressure was put on Joe Milton. But I mean, it wasn't a lot, and so it was bad. It was bad. But good for Joe Milton. Honestly, seriously, 100%. No one rationally would blame him.
And it does make sense if the Crafts had this decision made weeks ago. Which maybe not weeks, but certainly before the game yesterday. I mean, statements ready to go. Everything is going to happen. We're going to do this.
That happened really fast.
It's reasonable to also know that Jerod Mayo knew before going in, told some of the staff, he said, hey, we got nothing to do here other than go out there and try and win a football game because might as well go out on a win. What do we care?
Lovie Smith did it.
Yeah, what do we care how this impacts the team's draft position? If anything else, it'll make us look better if the team isn't a lot better next year. So let's go out there. Now, we're not going to defy orders and play Drake May the entire game, but, Joe, go out there and sling it.
And that was my point the whole time, is that this whole notion of, like, losing the game on purpose, like, that just wasn't going to happen. I don't know. I don't know. If I was a Patriot fan, and this might not even be right, but if I was a Patriot fan, I would have liked them to see them play Drake May and win with Drake May. I guess it doesn't matter.
What went into the decision to sit Drake May after the first series?
It was my decision, coach's decision.
Yeah, and then he goes on to say, do you think that gave you the best chance to win? And he said, Joe Milton played and we won the game, which is the facts. And so good for Jerod Mayo, good for Joe Milton. Those are the two, and good for Alex Van Pelt. Those are if I'm those three guys, I'm happy as hell, and I'm double freedom rocking them as I walk out the door. Steve, go ahead.
Hey, boys. Good morning.
Hey.
This is sort of like when you own a company and you got a bad employee, you fire your employee, but they got a couple days left, and then they destroy the company on the way out.
Yeah.
They should have fired him last week, right? If they knew they were going to fire him anyway, why would you keep him hanging around for the last game? Well, they definitely told him, please lose this game, Jerod. And he's like, yeah, no problem, Mr. Kraft. And he goes out and wins intentionally just to stick it to them on his way out the door. They just should have fired him last week. It's so dumb.
I just don't know how you ask a coach to deliberately lose, but I guess if you knew you were keeping the job, it would have been hard to out-lose Buffalo at the end of that game because Buffalo was just actively trying to lose.
No, once you got to that point, you had no chance at losing. But if you
could have been more conservative, right?
Earlier in the game, you
could have been more conservative,
direct things in your direction. Yeah.
Again, it just, as a fan, would have been nicer to me to see the future of the organization have a game like that, and then have, if the coach was staying, going, all right, well, they went out on a win, and this is what we wanted them to finish on a high note, and da-da-da-da-da. But instead, you had your practice squad quarterback have, like, the game of his life, and then you lost the first pick in the draft, and you fired your coach. So it really was a bad day to be a Patriot fan. Really bad day. But, I mean, we can get into Twitter again later, but I mean, maybe not such a bad day as you are going to pick up a real haul for Joe Milton in this draft.
Here's Mayo in that follow-up to starting Drake May yesterday.
How do you reconcile if you're going to go in the game to play the game to win, not playing your number one quarterback for most of it?
I think I've said all year we need to see, as the season goes on, what we actually have, and it was good to get Joe out there.
Isn't that different than trying to do everything you can to win, though?
We won the game, and Joe was our quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well said. And I would have an issue with it if he was still the coach, but he's not the coach anymore, so good for Jerod Mayo.
And also, no one's going to, stand here and try to argue that Joe Milton is a better quarterback than Drake May, but Drake May started a whole bunch of games for us this year. How many wins do we have? Somebody refresh my memory. Oh, we have 3. We have and 2 of them with Drake May? Okay, well, so who's to say that starting Drake May with this team and this year, with everything that's going on, is 100% your best chance to win? Of course he's a better quarterback than Joe Milton, but based on the win-loss record, does that necessarily give you a better chance to win?
Yes.
Maybe it gives you a better chance to have somebody go out there that is just going to sling it all over the place, and it's going to help when the team you're playing is also trying to lose.
No, they would have won the game with Drake May. They would have won the game with Jacoby Brissett. Maybe Brissett would have played. Maybe he would have taken it for the crafts a little bit more, but you put any quarterback on this team would have won that game. There's no question about it. I mean, I feel. Maybe not Bailey Zappi. Do you see how he played?
Oh, I made sure to watch a little bit of that, yeah.
He's throwing pick 6 screen passes in that game. All right, we'll be back with our friend Mike Reiss. Leaving your home or business and need a recommendation from someone? How about a recommendation from almost the entire staff here at the Sports Hub and the Sports Hub itself? Yes, they moved the station. DNVanLines.com. Mike Reiss, hello.
Good morning, Fred. Good morning, Hardy. Hey, John. How are we doing today?
We're doing good. I was happy that I didn't blurt out what I wanted to blurt out on Friday, which was I would just be blown over, shocked, stunned if the Patriots end up firing Jerod Mayo. I don't think it's going to happen. More surprised than had they kept Bill Belichick, if they ended up firing Jerod Mayo as we sat here this morning, and it turns out they only waited an hour and 20 minutes after the game last night.
So, Hardy, you're saying you didn't say that Friday, or
I didn't say it on Friday. I'm glad I didn't, even though I'm admitting to it now. I was really surprised it came that quick. That, number one, it happened at all, and number two, it came so quickly after the game.
Yeah, I've been retracing our steps, guys, and I think if I had to sum it up, you get to the bye week, December 7th, and at that point, you're saying to yourself, and I think we even talked about it, just build some momentum, right? Heading into 2025, show some progress, give the fans some hope. And I think if I were to sum it up, the last month has been exhausting, more negatives than positives. And I think ultimately, like you lost a lot of the fans. And when you lose the fans, I think that's my summary of how we got where we got to where we are right now.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, and how I remember talking to Hardy recently about how quick and easy it is now to get into that Gillette Stadium parking lot before games and getting out of there afterwards. Talk about the fans during the game and then the feeling in the locker room after the game.
So, well, the moment yesterday, John, that will stand out to me for a long time is they're kneeling on the ball at the end of the game, the win, and the fans that were there are booing. You know, no one wanted them to win because they wanted them to get the number one pick. And I think I would say that's reflective of the disconnect that was there. And like, I'll give you an example. You know, I think even something as simple as this, you know, late last week, Jelani Tavai had said something, you know, about on a radio interview, and Jelani, it felt like he was doing it from a place of a good place. Like, I want to defend Jerod Mayo. And yet he said something that insulted the fans. And like, it just, when you start going down that road, like you just can't have it, you know? And I don't, not to come down on him, but I think then you try to correct that. Like, he didn't play in the first quarter of the game. And I don't, not that this is why this happened, but there's nothing wrong with saying, like, we don't stand for that in this organization. The fans are the lifeblood of what we do. And that's why, you know, he didn't play in the first quarter, something like that, guys, you know? So, yep.
So you thought that was a big deal, like what Tavai said?
I think it's reflective of a bigger deal, Fred, in the sense of, you know, fans lost faith. And when you lose the fans, I think you have to give them hope. And ultimately, and I'll be curious to see what Robert Kraft says at 1:00. I might be way off on this. But to me, you have to give fans hope. And I think the majority of them lost hope that if you were to come back in a second year, that this could turn around. And I believe that just from our conversations and from reporting on the team, the reason they lost hope was a series of missteps along the way that accelerated over the last month since the bye week. Okay. And we can go over them if we want, but I mean, we've talked about them all.
All right. Maybe the biggest misstep starts with Robert Kraft and his decision that Jerod Mayo was going to be the next head coach, seemingly no matter what. Even though it ended up being a year earlier than what he wanted to do. Nope, that's it. We're not doing the full coaching search. He's the guy. So as we get ready to hear Robert Kraft again today at 1:00, Mike, do you have any reason to believe that there may be some kind of a power shift at the top of the Patriots organization, that the ultimate decision maker might not necessarily be Robert anymore, that maybe things will be shifting there too?
Yeah, you know what, Hardy, I don't have any information on that. I think when you have a transition like this and you consider how Robert's age, is it 82 or 83 now? You know, like this would be a natural transition if you're going to do that. But I haven't heard anything about that. And I think going back to what you said, like when we talk about the missteps, you know, at the time he did it, like you think back, he had hired 2 other coaches, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, and I remember him saying, you know, similar, like when I made those decisions, like first of all, those 2 coaches are very good coaches, right? That was a little unconventional too. So you know, you gave him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt at that time, but obviously this one didn't work out, you know, like the last decisions he made.
Elliot Wolf is still employed by this team, Mike. How much longer will he be in his current role? Is he the voice to lead the draft board into the future?
So, John, this goes back to me to the late 90s, early 2000s when Belichick was hired. They had Bobby Greer here. And the way this works is like the personnel staff has been doing work on the draft for months and months and months. You don't just throw that out the door in a whim. You keep that in place, and then however you go about your process in hiring a head coach, that's going to be a big determinant on if Elliot Wolf stays, in my view. I'd be surprised if Robert Kraft comes out today at 1:00 and says Elliot Wolf is staying no matter what. Like I think if you do that, you're now affecting your search for a head coach, because now you're putting a parameter in place that maybe a head coach says, well, that job's not as attractive if I can't align myself with a personnel person that I want to be with or that I have a background with. Now, you might get a head coach that comes in and says, oh, Elliot Wolf, I knew his dad, or, you know, I have a background with him. He's great. We'll work together. So I think both possibilities are in play, but I wouldn't frame that as if to say like he's definitely locked in, unless Robert Kraft says that today at 1:00 and I'm mistaken.
Okay, Mike Vrabel, the big talk in Rappaport basically said that they want Vrabel. Are you hearing that, A, and B, why?
So I think on the Vrabel stuff, the fact that he is available, I don't think we can have the discussion about, you know, moving on from Jerod and all that without acknowledging that that's at least a factor. But I think it would be a mistake if they just lock in and don't go through a thorough process and expose. And I'm talking about Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, and really, I don't know who else is going to be involved in those interviews. I think that'll be an interesting, hopefully, insight that we hear today from Robert Kraft, is like to open up to other candidates that you don't know about as much and learn about them. And so if it ends up at Vrabel, which I don't think would surprise anyone, great. You have a history with him. He was a coach of the year. He's done it before. So I think that, but you don't get to the end before you go through a fair, thorough, legitimate process, if that makes sense, Fred.
I just want, and there's talk about if you bring Vrabel in, he'll, you know, you mentioned Elliot Wolf and not committing to him now, that Vrabel would have a say and that they might retool everything based on what he wants to do. He didn't get along with the GM in Tennessee. Why Vrabel? Like, why is he the guy that you would allow to dictate the future of your organization to that degree? Like, why would they have that kind of faith in him? What has he achieved? I mean, Kevin Stefanski, I believe, has been head coach of the year twice.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's been a lot of head coaches of the year that aren't good coaches.
Yeah. I think, Fred, there's a good discussion. I think if you talk to people about what Mike Vrabel accomplished in 6 years at Tennessee, most would say, like, he had a very strong tenure and he got the most out of the team. I mean, go back to the Titans coming in here and beating the Patriots in the wild card round of the playoffs in the 2019 season. So I think he's a leader. I think he could bring structure and command. And I do think if it's him, like the fact you have a background with him, right? And that you know him, you have a relationship with him, lessens the curve a little bit. Now, to balance that out, his tenure in Tennessee didn't end great. And you got a young quarterback, so you want to pair that up with, make sure you have it paired up with some good offensive assistant coaches who've worked with quarterbacks who can bring along arguably one of your best assets in Drake May, right?
Right. All right. So just if you go over the Tennessee Titans, they were 9-7, 9-7 the 2 years before Vrabel. They were 9-7 and 9-7 the next 2 years.
AFC Championship game his second year.
And then they had 2 regular seasons with good records, with playoff disappointments, and then he was bad his last 2 seasons. I just, this notion, I don't know anything about him. Just this notion that he didn't get a job last offseason. But there just seems to be this notion around this team that, oh yeah, part of the reason you had to get rid of Mayo is that Vrabel interviewed with the Jets, and you know he might go somewhere else. And how could you lose Mike Vrabel? And you can't commit to Elliott Wolf. This is not you. This is, but you've heard this too. And how can you commit to Elliott Wolf? And because Mike Vrabel might be out there and he has ideas and he'll bring his staff with him and he has a staff. Mm-hmm. And I'm legitimately asking the question. I'm not being sarcastic.
Yeah, no.
Why is Mike Vrabel this guy that you would dictate the pace that you're in the structure of your organization to indulge?
So I think I see what you're saying, Fred. So I don't think you necessarily moved on from Jerod Mayo specifically because, well, we got a chance to get Mike Vrabel. We got to move now.
Okay.
I think that's part of it.
Okay.
I do think it's part of it, but I also think there's like there were some concerning things, Fred, that happened over the last month, right? And gets back to what we talked about with the fans and some of the messaging and honestly, even leaving Drake in the game against the Chargers, after he had been checked for a concussion, it's 37-7 in the fourth quarter, stuff like that, Fred, so I think you're balancing what you've seen over the last month, what that we don't know behind closed doors. The fan piece of it, I do think is a big part of it. And then on Vrabel, one thing, Fred, he's very good at the game management stuff,
mm-hmm.
right? And so not, again, this is a small piece, but people really admired Belichick for his game management when he was at his best, Belichick. Vrabel has a little bit of that. You remember when they played here, he had a loophole in the rules where, there was a delay a game on a punt. And so he's got that mastery. And I think that would be comforting to some degree after some of the learning curve we saw with Jerod in that area, which you'd expect to be a learning curve for a first-year head coach on that stuff.
Yeah, he gets a lot of credit for that playoff game against the Patriots. But just real quick, did you know that Jerod Mayo was going to get fired? Did you think he was going to get fired before the game?
I had a sense, Fred, that things were trending in that direction, but in full disclosure, I didn't know for sure.
Right. Okay. Well, listen.
The one thing I would just push back on a little bit, Mike, or not push back, but I guess just
push it.
Push it real good. Yeah.
When was the last time you saw Salt and Pepper?
Yo, baby pop.
Is it the same without Spinderella being with us anymore?
Yeah.
I did see him. I think they were at the Garden.
Of course you
Fred.
did.
Yeah.
I've seen them. They did some Fan Gourmet thing that I went to.
Who were they with in concert? Do you remember?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm getting it confused. I have to think back, but it was
was it Lisa and Cult Jam with Full Force or without Full Force? Because
I think that's what it. Yeah,
it probably was.
No, it was obviously at the Garden. You did say the Garden. It was obviously at the TD Garden.
Yeah. But Hardy, let's go. Let's get after it a little bit. Push
I
back.
don't think I think Mike Vrabel being available right now and the Jets talking to him has tons to do with them letting Mayo go last night.
Now you've touched off a firestorm.
Seriously, you're not.
I don't think Hardy might be wrong. What are your thoughts on that, Mike? We've already kind of talked about it, but it does seem. I mean, you've heard a lot of people
Too big a coincidence that Kraft was that quick with the trigger.
And by the way, that Vrabel was brilliant for interviewing with the Jets at that point, which is a stretch. Go ahead.
I think for me, it's less about the Jets and just more that he's available, right? Like, so even last year when they made the decision to move on from Bill and they had the succession language in Jerod's contract, when Mike was available, I believe they had a thought of, well, should we consider this option, even though we were thinking we were going down that road. So I think this was always on their mind to some degree.
And the Jets being in on him, absolutely that plays into it. It was enough of a consideration for the Bills yesterday to not want the Patriots, the lowly Patriots, to get the number 1 pick where they didn't try and win that game yesterday. So why is it out of the question that Vrabel getting interest from the Jets would be enough to make Robert Kraft say, okay, you know what, Jerod, you're out of here. We got to get Mike Vrabel. Okay. I want, maybe I should have taken him in the first place, but I definitely don't want him playing him twice a year when he coaches the Jets.
Well, that would concern me. All right, listen, we're very late. Mike Reiss, you're the best. I look forward to seeing you all over the television today on ESPN. Thank you so much for the time.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a great rest of the show.
Thank you. Oh, and we will. We'll be back in just a moment. Here are the headlines.
Sports Hub headlines.
Patriots won their last game of the season, 23-16 over Buffalo. They
The Sports Hub.
Zolak treating yesterday's game like a funeral procession, with the way that things devolved. Again, to recap, yesterday was not a good day to be a Patriot fan. Number one, you had a loss that obviously took you from the number one pick to the number 4 over, or a win. Sorry, a win, exactly.
It's a win, Fred.
A win.
They won.
It is. They did win the game, and what it was your practice squad quarterback having a great day against a team that at the end was actively trying to lose because they didn't want you to have the number one pick in the draft. So it was captivating to watch a guy trying very, very hard and succeeding and having like the day of his life and feeling really good about himself while everyone else just kind of stood around watching it. And then so that happens, and then they don't even wait an hour until after the game, which I guess good for them. And they fired Jerod Mayo. And then there's all this heat on Mike Vrabel, and Hardy said it to Mike Reiss. It's certainly, I don't know anything about Mike Vrabel, and I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm going to stop pretending because I hear enough of people just throwing crap out there, like a Kansas City fan from Boise, Idaho, talking about how Ben Johnson's going to be the next greatest head coach of all time. How the hell do you know? What do you know about Ben Johnson? Ben Johnson's a great offensive coordinator. What do you know about how he's going to be a head coach? Go ahead.
No, it's interesting you bring up Ben Johnson. We talked a little bit about this off the air. Ben Johnson's never been a head coach before.
Yeah.
So you have no idea
he
what
won't
he's
take
going to
this
be.
job. Don't worry about it.
No. That leads me to my point, which is you can eliminate all of the coordinators that have never been head coaches for this particular job. Kraft is not following up what just happened with a guy who's never been a head coach before.
Okay, but there's if there was some incredible front office guru, that was this with all the, past jobs and everything else that has shown that he can run something from the top with great success, that would enthrall me as a Patriots fan. But just handing a guy who had a couple good years in Tennessee and just saying, you're going to have a say in how this whole operation works would frighten me. And then that's at the expense of, maybe bringing in the next great head coach. Because, Kevin O'Connell had never been a head coach. Sean McVay had never been a head coach.
But you have to look at the situation and what ownership is feeling based on what they just went through.
I know, and I just would like ownership to go, we don't know what we're doing right now, and we really don't.
And you know what? It's obvious that that's the case. And Robert Kraft took a good first step by admitting to his mistake.
Sure.
Now, but will he take the next big step and admit that he needs a systematic overhaul and just promoting from within does not work in this world as opposed to his other businesses?
And I don't think you can fire Elliott Wolf, but I don't even think that matters. I think that you need to the whole structure of your organization has to change.
Well, it matters in terms of how the head coach is going to get along with the GM, and if it's going to be Vrabel, we saw what happened with the GM in Tennessee, and that was part of his demise there. So that all has to be taken under consideration.
It's sure, but if you're going to turn that means you're turning your organization over to Mike Vrabel if you do that. And I just want to know before I make any judgments, because I don't, based on the way he was in Tennessee and that he didn't get a job last offseason, I don't quite know why. Why him? I know the Rosenblatt, the guy who covers the Jets,
Zach Rosenblatt
wrote some big, fellatio piece on why all these teams love Vrabel.
I don't think that the head coach getting along with the GM equates to handing the team over to the head coach.
It does if you have an existing GM and you get rid of them for that coach. And that means you're giving – and the coach – okay, I'll tell you this. If you hire Vrabel and you go, you're filling out the staff and you're dictating who's in the front office, that sounds to me like you're giving him the keys to the team. I think the Crafts need someone under them to be to hold the macro of the organization and actually set the organization up, because they don't know how to do it.
Well, they kind of have that person right now. That she's been in place there as someone who's supposed to be keeping watch over everything, and we saw how that worked out. The lawyer woman who they brought
Robin
in.
Glazer?
Thank you.
Okay, well then I don't
She
think
was
that's
the one
a
that
very
was
good
holding the
Jerod.
hammer and walking down the hallway with a hammer.
Well,
in
then get someone else.
Yeah, watch TV. she's the
Fred,
hammer woman.
Then
It's hammer
get
time.
like a jackhammer fella.
It's hammer
or
time.
a woman. You know what? Let's get a woman. Can we do that? Let's start changing the whole narrative. I gotta be a dude, huh? Let's just throw this whole thing out. Let's turn this thing on its head and make people talk.
Let's get a kid. Fresh eyes. Let's get a dreamer kid.
Yeah,
perfect.
Like angels in the outfield. Let's get a deity.
Yeah.
Let's conjure up some dead dudes to start moving things around.
Get a 12-year-old in Christopher Lloyd.
Let's do a BJ and the Bear sitch. We get a guy and a pal. All right. Well, listen.
We're getting Danny Glover.
Not like a dumb dog, but an intelligent simian entity.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Just someone tough. Someone that can ride shotgun.
Right. A right turn, Clyde.
Exactly. That's what I like. All right. Well, listen. I am interested in people's thoughts about why Mike Vrabel. I'm also interested in what people were thinking during the game yesterday as Joe Milton played a career game in a must-lose situation. Again, if I was a Patriot fan and it was Drake May doing it, I might be like, oh, and if you didn't fire the coach, I might be like, oh, that's nice. But you fired the coach and your practice squad quarterback went nuts, and now you got the 4th pick of the draft. That had to suck.
Yeah.
And I wish more than anyone they had the number 1 pick in the draft because that's off-season, put it in neutral, baby, and let's just roll downhill. We're just speculating on that number 1 pick all day. But then I saw Joe Milton, who I've been very tough on, just go out there and toss that thing around like it was nobody's business. And Buffalo's standing around, and he's throwing the ball all over the place, and everyone's getting sad, and I'm just interested. And now Mike Vrabel and why, and I'm being sincere. I want to know why. You might convince me. I just don't know. And I don't see it being obvious, but we'll be back.
Stay tuned for more Toucher and Hardy on the Sports Hub. KC Boston 98.5, the Sports Hub, a Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
Patriots won their final game of the season yesterday, 23-16 over Buffalo in Foxborough. They finished 4-13 for a second straight year, and then they finished Jerod Mayo's tenure as the head coach of the team. They fired him after just one season. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt is reportedly out as well, but Executive Vice President of Player Personnel Elliott Wolf remains, at least for now. ESPN and others are reporting Mike Vrabel is expected to get an interview with Robert Kraft for Mayo's former job, along with many others. Another NFL news, Detroit beat Minnesota 31-9 to wrap up the top seed and the bye in the NFC playoffs. Celtics and Bruins both played yesterday on the road. Both lost. The Green were beaten by the Thunder in Oklahoma City 105-92. The Celtics scored 65 points and led by 10 at the half, and then were completely shut down after that. Jason Tatum scored 26 in the loss. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 33 for the winners. Celtics wrap up their road trip in Denver late tomorrow night. And despite a pair of goals from David Pastrnak in the third period to tie the game, the Bruins ultimately lost their fourth straight game last night, 5-4 in overtime to the New York Islanders. Bo Horvat scored twice, and that includes the game winner in bonus time. Bruins play Edmonton at TD Garden tomorrow night. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Dr. Matthew Lopresti and Leonard Hair Transplant Associates, the hair doctor of Hardy, Charlie McAvoy, and Tuukka Rask. Call 1-800-GET-HAIR for your free consultation. I'm John Wallach on Boston Tone for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 8:30.
Jerod Mayo is out as Patriots head coach. 98.5 The Sports Hub has it covered all day, on air and online. Hey, listen, if you've got to go, we understand, but make sure you bring the Sports Hub app with you so you can hear more of Toucher and Hardy.
That's what I want on my tombstone.
On the
5. Watch us on YouTube. Search 98.5 The Sports Hub on YouTube, and then subscribe, and then all of us become billionaires. Junior gets it. Junior, go ahead.
Oh, top of the morning. Yeah, I think Kraft, I like your idea of hiring a woman. He should hire a woman and tell us how strong and fierce she is, and then he could act noble and righteous. Because what did he say about the public asset? Like he's the torch for the public asset or something?
Oh, you said that he is like
a steward,
a
or
steward of the
caretaker.
team.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's very good.
How long did he wait on hold for that?
I don't know, but he took that whole woman head coach thing and ran with it. I was just having fun with the hammer lady idea. When you said there was already a woman in charge of the organization, I just said I was making light of the whole thing.
See, this has to be explained to Fred because he doesn't do his homework. He didn't watch the.
No, I did. I saw the reenactment of her walking down the hall with the hammer.
Did you watch all 10 episodes
of Dynasty? There's a chance I might have.
All right.
At least close. Yeah. I mean, I didn't like it.
She was walking down the hallway in slow motion.
Yes,
with a hammer.
they reenacted it. But
Yeah.
she was the lady in charge. You're saying?
Yes.
She was in charge of
a lot of
everything.
things. Yes.
Okay, because in all seriousness, and I was just, if you listen to it, you understand what I was doing. I was just having fun. But in all seriousness, they need to restructure the entire way this organization's run. It goes beyond head coach. It goes beyond Elliott Wolf. They need to. According to everyone who covers the NFL, they have a very antiquated system of doing things, and they need to restructure from the very top. I do think it's ridiculous to fire Elliott Wolf after one draft cycle, and you have $130 million in free agent. You didn't spend any money last year. You have $130 million in money. Be careful.
Yeah,
Be
don't
careful
go
with
hog
that.
wild.
Yeah,
you
don't-
tried that before.
Yeah, if you don't go crazy with that. Now,
get overspend to get T. Higgins or whatever free agent wide receiver
if you can get
want.
a young receiver that would be a number one, that's in a situation like T. Higgins, where T. Higgins on a real team would be T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but since they're with a cheap penny pinching organization, that's not going to happen.
But now you have an attractive situation. You have a quarterback. You have a quarterback that wide receivers can go, okay, I can work with that guy.
A wide receiver, maybe, yeah. I would be
I'm not talking about everybody. I'm just talking about specifically the wide receiver.
And I would invest in the offensive line to protect Drake May, but with an eye on still drafting it. But I certainly wouldn't go out and start getting 32-year-old defensive ends and stuff like that.
No.
But, yeah, I would try to get a serviceable offensive line while drafting at that position. I would – and maybe even draft a left tackle that I don't play right away.
No,
I'm signing a left tackle in free agency, and I'm spending money on it no matter what.
Well, that's the thing. You can argue if you're the Patriots, the interior of the line theoretically could be taken care of. If David Andrews is healthy, he's your starting center. If Cole Strange... Now, a lot of people didn't like the way Cole Strange was playing before he got hurt, but he's a hell of a lot better than whatever else you have here.
Right.
And you have Onwenu to play right guard. So the interior, in theory, is locked down. What you need is to draft a tackle or two and sign a tackle or two.
Or you could draft a left tackle and play him at right tackle at first.
Sure.
And I know it's
like
not easy.
Alton, I've said San Diego, in L.A. with the Chargers.
Yes. How could you confuse those teams? How dare you? They've been such a part of the league for so long. All right, Vic, go ahead.
I know this is far-fetched, but I'm starting to feel a vibe of almost like, is this like what the Colts did with Jeff Saturday? Because I'm just
I thought of
confused
Jeff
as to
Saturday,
why.
too. I thought of the Jeff Saturday, too. It's funny because Jeff Saturday was hired by Indianapolis. He had no coaching experience, less than Mayo. He had really none.
He coached a little high school.
He did coach high school, and then he was a disaster, and they fired him. And it's so funny, Vic. I thought the same thing. I didn't think Mayo was a gimmick. I think that they really liked Mayo and saw the way he related to players, and he was like the anti-Belichick, so they hired him. But I did think of, like, Irsay's a out-of-control owner who is like, there's talk of him firing the coach now. They drafted Anthony Richardson. Like, Irsay's like a weird dude.
No, Steichen is staying, by the way.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good. And so I did think, is this organization... It did remind me of Indianapolis, so that's an interesting point, Vic. I thought the same thing. I don't think Mayo was a gimmick head coach at all, but hiring a guy with no experience and blowing him out in a year and then, turning around did remind me of the Jeff Saturday thing and did remind me of, I hope ownership isn't making this into an Irsay situation where you got some rich guy just
it doesn't
going hog wild in there, just like with no structure and screwing everything up.
It doesn't have the same feel as Saturday. It certainly doesn't have the same feel as Patricia being the offensive coordinator, because in both those instances, when it didn't work, everyone pointed and said, see, we told you that wouldn't work. That's what happened with Saturday and Patricia. I think there were plenty of people who thought Mayo had a chance to be
Well, I still think Mayo
coach.
could probably be a head coach just based on what I know about him, but he just had there was no way he was gonna fail. There was no infrastructure, which is my point, is that you have to build an infrastructure so things like this don't happen again. And again, to repeat myself for the 100th time,
it wouldn't have taken much, though. It's going back to what Reiss said. Had they been able to show some improvement and get a couple of wins more, maybe even one win more, and have those wins take place at the end of the season and show some ascension, show some improvement.
Not get embarrassed in the second half by Jacksonville. Not get your ass handed to you by the Chargers.
But he was never going to succeed in the long term here. But they have to. Regardless of what happens, they have to change the way they run the organization. If you want to know a unanimous thing like Patricia and everything, there's no one that will tell you they don't have to change the way they run this organization, that they're running it like they did 25 years ago, and that's not how you run one anymore.
And I'll tell you something else, Fred, something that was pointed out to me at that Chargers game. Somebody just, called them like was done a lot around him with the Patriots for a long time. He said, if something's going to change around here, he said, it won't necessarily be the product on the field. And this person pointed out at the concourse and said, it'll be because of this. And it was the no lines at the concession stands, and it's 2/3 full in the stadium. He said, that's what is going to prompt change as much as anything else.
Well, Reiss mentioned it 5 times as fans.
You can be 4-13, you can be 5-12, and keep your job. If you're losing money and people aren't spending money and there is a lack of interest in what the team is doing, that is going to prompt change as quickly as anything.
Well, I would like the stands yelling "Fire Mayo" to really push the ownership into making decisions. I would like something in place where you just there's a confidence in the organization, and B, that you knew even if you're losing games, there is a structure in place to improve, which there does not exist, Mayo or not. Go ahead.
Just thinking about this as we're talking about it over these couple of hours, is it in the best interest of the organization to have Mike Vrabel go somewhere else? Because that would force them to look outside the organization, force them to get in bed with someone that they don't know. It forced them to change the way they think.
With wholesale changes that need to be done from everything, from just an operation standpoint, yes. I think that you need to go outside of the organization and get someone with fresh ideas, and I think that you need to restructure the way the whole organization
Not
is
Vrabel,
run.
no Vrabel, no Flores. Just go with someone that you have not worked with before.
The danger with Vrabel is it seems like if you hire Vrabel, he's going to have a lot of say in like how everything is run, and I just don't know if that's the guy I want to do that. I don't know, and I could be convinced if someone knows him or was like around when he coached and can tell me that they're very confident that he could do that job, but based on his tenure in Tennessee, I don't know why.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't mind somebody coming in there and being the guy. Good. Don't have some a head coach by committee situation. No, have someone be the guy, as long as it's the right guy with the right ideas.
Sure, and I just don't know why Vrabel hits all those points just because he's in the Patriots Hall of Fame, and it was nice to you.
Or the girl.
The lady with the hammer.
Female head coach even.
I'm telling you. Why not? Put a smile on my face. Buffalo Chip, go ahead.
What?
Buffalo Chip has called in for years. Go ahead, Buffalo Chip.
Fred, smile on my face. Well, I was giddy yesterday. It took 50 years as a Buffalo Bills fan to be happy for a loss. Is that crazy or what? That everything is aligning and everybody in New England is upset today? But, boy, oh, boy, it didn't look like the Buffalo Bills wanted to win that game yesterday.
Well, because they didn't. And
there's
they
a
did
reason
not.
for that, Buffalo Chip.
So you have to be a big Milton fan right now. You have to be a big Joe Milton fan. As
he looked like the MVP of the league yesterday, Fred.
He was the MVP. He should be MVP of Week 18 or Week 19 or whatever the hell it is. Week 18. I'll tell you that. He played like it. I mean, he certainly did.
AFC Offensive Player of the Week. It could be Scott Zolak.
Joe Milton should be AFC Player of the Week, probably, based on everything that happened.
How did Bo Nix do yesterday?
Oh, yeah, Bo Nix probably, because they made the playoffs, I guess.
38-0.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Milton certainly played like it, much to the delight of the Patriot fans. I hope you woke up this morning realizing that with a hangover going, oops.
Would you like to hear Rob Gronkowski when he was on the desk with Fox yesterday, what he had to say about this?
I would.
Okay. Rob Gronkowski, after the news of the Jerod Mayo firing came down, had this to say.
I was shocked by that, and to happen that soon was a shocker to a lot of people, especially here at the desk. We were all surprised by that. I think it was unfair to Coach Jerod Mayo. I mean, he had never had the chance to develop as a head coach. He was just a rookie himself in that department. And if you judge a coach by their first year, that's really not appropriate. I mean, he really... Hey, we got to go to break.
Yeah, you do.
Wait, I was just getting
It's
started.
almost cruel.
Hold on a second.
It really is almost mean to have him sitting there talking off the top of his head.
This has been taken by some as Fox stepping in and saying, whoa, he's about to say something bad about the Crafts. I take it as, this is bad television. We need to stop
I
this.
couldn't agree more. That's exactly what that is.
If you think they stepped in to save the Crafts, you're out of your effing mind.
Department. And if you judge a coach by their first year, that's really not appropriate. I mean, he really...
Yeah,
hey, we got to go to break.
Yeah. Two means, and that means they're going to break.
The engine is seizing a little bit. It's time to get him off the screen.
I won't make fun of him anymore because I saw him on that pyramid show. And if you watch it, which I know you two sons of bitches hasn't taken my advice and watched it. If you watch the pyramid thing, you'll stop laughing.
Michael Strahan is the host of this thing. And
I don't remember who the host was, John. All I know is that he's got to describe words to people. It's kind of not funny.
It's not, Fred. I watch it. It's uncomfortable to watch.
Like, we're not going to play it.
No.
It's bad enough where we're not going to play it.
No.
Like, this whole Gronkowski thing, not to bring the room down, like, you see Earl, I hope it doesn't happen. I swear to God I do. He seems like a really good guy. Like Earl Campbell, like how Earl Campbell is. Like, it just seems.
But I'm special.
No.
It's mean to me.
Like, let's put it this way. Adam and I both saw the pyramid thing and was like, we can't play this and make fun of it.
No.
Like, it's that bad. It's that bad. He's struggling. He's struggling a little bit. Mark, go ahead.
I mean, I understand where you guys want to go outside, but isn't Vrabel also a guy who's from the outside because he got traded because he badmouthed the Patriot place, ended up with the Chiefs. But then he went to college, he went to other pro teams, had success as a head coach. He can relate to players. Every interview you hear him on, people talk him up. And recently, I know Urban Myers is not the best example, but he was on a podcast talking about how Vrabel was one of the guys who helped control the locker room so Bill didn't have to worry about the locker room.
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt any of that. Yeah, and he was a big star at Ohio State, one of the great Ohio State players of all time, and he spent time over there and had success. Yeah. Like, I understand that he's not hiring within the organization, but there seems to be this notion ever since he was inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame and he was all praising the Patriots that this has to happen. And if that's a factor, then you're taking his history with the Patriots into consideration, which would concern me.
Shouldn't the general manager hire the coach? Shouldn't you hire the GM and have the GM lead the search for the coach?
Unless you're hiring a guy like Parcells, like for instance, I know I'm mentioning him, but the Jets, who are a terrible organization, haven't ruled out, and I don't know if this is good or not, but haven't ruled out hiring a coach before a GM so it doesn't eliminate any coaching prospects.
Is Woody Johnson leading the charge with the Jets to find the new head coach?
They hired a outside firm with Mike Tannenbaum to run the search.
They got someone else to do it. It sounds like Robert and Jonathan Kraft are going to be holding interviews, not Elliot Wolf. So if you give this to Mike, if you give this organization, or if you hire Mike Vrabel, I mean, he's going to want to bring in his own people, and that apparently, according to what I read from Diana Rossini yesterday, includes a general manager.
They need a whole new brain trust. It just seems like
they're reverse engineering this. It doesn't seem. I mean, look, if you're dead set on Vrabel and you want to bring him in, then go full bore. Blow Elliot Wolf out, bring in your own GM, do it the way he wants to do it, and see if it works that way. But if you're going to be like other organizations, if you're going to run it like other NFL teams, you have the GM lead the search, right?
Well, what I would do is I would not trust myself to lead the search, and I would hire a structure. I would create not hire a structure. That's a dumb way of putting it. I'd create a system and a structure so that there is a bunch of voices with a lead voice that is dictating and analyzing all these decisions, because there's not enough voices in the room. There's not enough thoughts. There's not enough information. They're not operating like a modern franchise. The way they're operating, they're writing on typewriters while everyone else has got laptops, is the way it's been described to us. And it's being manifested on the field. Belichick's brilliant football mind, and he couldn't do it anymore. And you're not going to, if you bring someone into this, it's just going to be the same thing. You might win a few more games, but you haven't had to do it yet, because you got real good. You did it at a great hire with Belichick. And like you said, they inherited a team that had Parcells in there and everything else. So like you gotta go and you gotta change the way you operate and gotta change the way you do business.
Now, I would hate for them, and Bert Breer was the first one to bring this up. I'm stealing his idea. I would hate for them to miss on this opportunity. They have been given an opportunity to change, and I hope they do, because what they're doing now isn't working. And to follow it up with something similar would be a mistake.
Okay, we'll break and come back with Phil Perry.
More.
member wrote a column telling people that Jerod Mayo's
And he
future,
hits the J.
was, I think, headed into the bye week or coming out of the bye week, that his future was not assured, that the Crafts
hits the J.
had been piecing.
Adam doesn't know that connection.
Oh, God.
I
He
don't.
doesn't know the song, and he hits the J.
I mean, I know this was sampled by MIA for Paper Planes.
Yeah, but Paper Planes was
Ooh.
sampled by a guy who played basketball in Wisconsin and had a
In
song
some
about LeBron
barn,
James.
in a barn with LeBron James jerseys pinned to his wall with thumbtacks.
That sounds sad.
And he says, and he hits the J.
All I want to do.
I can't even remember what he said. All I want to do is done.
No, there was like a click and a boom. Of
Yeah,
like
but
a
that's in the
gun.
MIA song,
Yeah.
too. All right, so lots of bad news for the Patriots yesterday. They fired Jerod Mayo.
Bad news for Doug Peterson, just fired by the Jaguars.
That's a shock.
Yeah.
And but thank you for the information. The practice squad quarterback had himself a day, and you got yourself the 4th pick in the draft. Now, Phil Perry covers the Patriots for NBC Sports Boston. Phil, hello.
Good morning, boys.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us on this this hot day in the season.
Phil, you were all over this pregame. You pretty much said it without saying it, but I watched your long stand-up there from the field, and you gave plenty of indication that Jerod Mayo being released and relieved of his duties was at least, if not likely, possible.
Yeah, it felt like a strong possibility yesterday morning after talking to a few people well before the game. And I would say it was sort of trending in a very different direction all week following that Chargers game. You know, I think that was just so non-competitive, obviously, on the scoreboard, 40-7. I think it was embarrassing on a few different levels for the organization. And so I had noticed a shift in the way people were talking about individuals' jobs over the course of that week in a way that it hadn't been, those jobs hadn't been talked about really all season. I think I've mentioned it on your show, for weeks and months now, back towards the middle of the season when people were speculating about Jerod Mayo's job. And it was explained to me very clearly, it's not 100% that Jerod Mayo's coming back, but it would take something really unexpected and almost unprecedented for him not to be the coach going into 2025. And some of those same people that I spoke to this past week, that their tone had changed significantly.
Okay, why? You said on several levels it was embarrassing. What were the, get more specific. What about that besides the loss and the amount of points they lost?
Lack of competitiveness.
Yeah, like what are the several levels?
Yeah, I would say, effort by the players, especially towards the end of that game, was not where it should be. I would look at a situation like the Ramondre Stevenson is not going to start and then he ends up in the starting lineup as being a small thing on the surface. Antonio Gibson versus Ramondre Stevenson, that's not a huge deal one way or the other. But it was a window into the level of communication or lack thereof on the coaching staff. And so for something like that to happen, that's an embarrassment to a degree. I would even point to something like, and I don't know if these elements that I'm describing now are specific things that ownership is pointing to and saying this is why we need a new coach, but it's indicative of some level of dysfunction. I would even point to Drake May and how he was used in that game and just clearly suffering a head injury early, not only coming back, okay, he passed the protocol. You don't have to force him back in the game. Not that they had to. He wants to play. And so I get it. He comes back in. But then he plays, and he's playing late into a blowout behind a couple of backup offensive linemen late in that game. He actually hurt his right hand playing behind a backup offensive lineman in Caden Wallace because Caden Wallace basically got buried by a Chargers edge defender, and he ended up falling over Caden Wallace while Caden Wallace was on his back. So, those are the types of things I think ownership would look at and be asking hard questions about. And so you add it onto the way the season overall had been trending, obviously. And I think there are outside factors here too, guys, that are very real.
Vrabel?
Number one being Vrabel, and number two being sort of just how the fans had turned on Mayo. And I think the Crafts probably looked at the overall environment and said, I'm not sure this guy's going to be – we may believe that he's eventually going to be a great head coach, but it might not be here just because this is going to be such a difficult environment for him to sort of dig his way out of this based on the fan reaction.
Okay, from really a point of ignorance, why I'm asking why Mike Vrabel? I don't. You tell me why.
Well, I think the relationship really matters. It mattered with Jerod Mayo, and I think it's going to matter here as well. And, the way that I understand it is it seems at least very unlikely that the Crafts will want to go from one rookie head coach to another rookie head coach. And I'm sure they'll go through a process. They have to, by rule, go through a process and interview a number of different candidates here. But the relationship with Vrabel, we all saw just how tight the Crafts were with Vrabel when he came back for his Patriots Hall of Fame induction last year. The kind things that Vrabel said about the organization when he was on the podiums, those things were so kind that it seems to have gotten him into hot water with his employers at the time, and he was eventually fired. And so I think that matters. And Vrabel, guys, I think he's a good coach. I think he's a smart coach. When he had Ryan Tannehill and Derek, playing well, and Derrick Henry sort of at the height of his powers, and AJ Brown, he coached a good team, and they seem to be smart when it came to things like clock management and in-game decision making. And so I do think there's evidence out there, despite his record. I know he won. I think it was 6 of his last 24 games in Tennessee. In one of those last 2 seasons in Tennessee, I believe the Titans set the record for most starters lost to injury in a season. And so he was
Lions
dealing with.
Broke it. No, I'm just kidding.
They might have. They might have, honestly.
Have.
But he was dealing with some situations there that were sort of beyond his control. So he's widely viewed by people in the league as a good coach. And I think the Crafts are going to want somebody with experience, and I think it really helps that it's somebody that they know.
All right, fair enough. So if they hire Mike Vrabel, let's just say they hire Mike Vrabel, I think you've mentioned it a couple of times as well. This organization needs the way the change. It's antiquated the way that they're operating. If you hire Mike Vrabel, are you saying like, hey, you bring in all your coordinators, you help us structure this organization, maybe even outside of the coaching staff?
I think they would lean on him to a significant degree when it comes to things like that. One thing that I'm interested in is, and we know as of now, there have been no changes. I reported this last night, but there have been no changes to the front office. There have been no changes to the coaching staff outside of Jerod Mayo. Now, a lot of those guys are under contract. My guess is the way it'll work is those guys that are under contract will be given the opportunity at least to interview with whoever is the next head coach to take on similar roles. And in all likelihood, my guess is for somebody, if it is somebody like Vrabel who comes in, most of those guys will not end up back in New England. Front office, my guess is something similar happens where nobody has been moved on from at this point. But nothing is guaranteed for any of those guys, Elliott Wolf or anyone else, for 2025. And Vrabel's going to want to come in with a general manager that he knows, whether it's Ryan Cowden, who's with the Giants right now and had been with the Titans while Vrabel was there, or Mike Borgonzi, I think is a name worth mentioning. He's the assistant general manager in Kansas City, overlapped with Vrabel in Kansas City. He's a very highly regarded guy in the NFL, has been with the Chiefs for a long time.
By the way, Vrabel's been in, I'm sorry. By the way, Vrabel's been in Cleveland this year and helped that franchise. Go ahead, Phil.
He has been in Cleveland, and so there's a name from Cleveland that could end up going with Vrabel wherever he ends up. Tommy Reiss is a guy who was the tight ends coach there this past year. He was Alabama's offensive coordinator. He was at one time Notre Dame's offensive coordinator, and I know there are people in Cleveland who think wherever Vrabel goes, Tommy Reiss will be the offensive coordinator with him. My question is, do they have a general manager, guys? Like that, you're talking about modernizing the operation, Fred. They have never had a general manager here in New England. And does that limit the pool of candidates that they are able to attract to come and run their front office? Because for some reason, they just do not want to give out that title. Now, I guess if you're given the powers of general manager and you're paying that person like a general manager, then what does the title matter? But, there are things that the Patriots still do here that other teams just don't do. And they might have to be willing to budge on some of those things to attract the best and brightest. And if they want to get this thing turned around, they have to be open to those types of changes, in my opinion.
Actually, good you bring that up. Do you think that the Crafts are willing to do this based on what's happened to them in the last year?
I think they will be, and I think especially if it is somebody like Vrabel, and again, I think you don't even make the move off of Mayo unless you feel like you've got a really good shot at Mike Vrabel if you're Robert and Jonathan Kraft. I think if he suggests it, I think you would take it under strong consideration. And you're not quite back to the Belichick model of having the one guy at the top and he runs the entire football operation. But if you trust him the way I think they would, you might be willing to take his advice on something like that and other things, whether it comes to how the analytics department should look, how nutrition should look, how the weight room should look, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they would, if they can get him in here, I think they would lean on him to a large degree.
Yeah, because, by all indications, he is the everyman. He's out there. He's out there practicing. He's out there with all aspects.
He's
all
with
units.
Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, no.
Look at what he did out there.
He'll go out there. He'll run drills with them. He's everywhere. He wants to be involved in every facet.
This sounds.
He likes getting his hands dirty, guys. You ever watch him in a joint practice? He'll get his hands right.
Hold on, you're doing it wrong. Let me show you. Yeah,
he'll throw you around.
He's like a Bobby Valentine.
You're right. He doesn't care.
He's like Bobby Valentine. He's roughhouses is what he does. Oh boy. All right. Well, good stuff, Phil. Appreciate it. Thank you for the information.
How about that
Mike
Joe
Vrabel.
Milton, though, huh?
Oh yeah, you were right.
Boy,
you were right.
Fred, has your opinion changed on Joe Milton? You're very down on Joe Milton.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, one game against Buffalo's third stringers. I will say he looked even better than I thought.
He looked great
based on training camp. I thought he has developed, and obviously the arm has always been good, and he's always been an athlete. But I think they've done a good job of developing these young quarterbacks here in New England.
Absolutely, and he played very well in all seriousness. And it was funny to me because I've been bad-mouthing him all season since they drafted him. But it was also funny when I was getting people making fun of me, and I was saying, "You do realize what's happening out there? You're going to lose the number 1 overall pick because your practice squad quarterback is throwing all over this Buffalo defense."
I know there were a couple people in the organization that I spoke to yesterday who were wondering when Jacoby Brissett was going to be entered because they felt Joe Milton was actually playing too well.
Yes, and then maybe Brissett would have put a governor on things a little bit. And, it seemed like one guy was trying awful hard, is what I'll say, yesterday. And good for him and great for him. He should have been.
Right.
But it seemed like there was one guy taking things real seriously while everyone else was kind of just like, okay. But you think Buffalo actively tried to lose that game. This has nothing to do with Joe Milton. But at the end of that game, Buffalo was actively trying to lose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think you could do it under the guise of, we're just trying to shorten the game, right? We're just trying to run clock. We don't want to get anybody hurt. We've got the playoffs to worry about. But, the way they handled the play calling and the personnel. And listen, the Patriots handled their personnel to lose the game, too. I mean, they can all say they were playing to win yesterday, but you got Drake May out of the game with – one series into it, you get, Hunter Henry didn't play. He oftentimes plays through things. He wasn't even active. Half their defensive starters were out of that game. So maybe they could have done a little bit more. Maybe they could have given the ball a little more to Terrell Jennings instead of Antonio Gibson. Maybe they could have thrown the ball a little bit more to Javon Baker instead of Kayshon Boutte. But they clearly managed that thing, I think, in such a way that they were hoping they lost.
Yeah, it was maybe almost like they had marching orders and who to play, but then when it came time to play, they were saying we're gonna call this game to win. And maybe they knew going in that he was getting. Maybe he knew. Do you think Mayo knew before the game he was getting blown out? He had to have an idea.
I think he had to have an idea because I think that Schefter report.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much they're watching pregame live on NBC Sports Boston. I hope they're watching. I don't know how much they were watching, but I think based on the Schefter reporting, that probably got around pretty quickly, and that broke when I was on the pregame show on the Sports Hub, and that was about 11 o'clock, like 2 hours before kickoff. So my guess is they saw that and they had a good idea of what was going on.
Well, if they were at Logan Airport, they saw you because those TVs can't get enough of NBC Sports Boston, my friend.
Love it. Thank you, Logan.
All right. Thanks, Phil. We appreciate it very much.
All right, guys. Thank you, Phil.
There you go. Phil Perry, the great Phil Perry from NBC Sports Boston. Here are the headlines.
Sports Hub headlines.
Patriots finished at 4-13. They beat Buffalo and Foxborough yesterday 23-16. Head coach Jerod Mayo fired right after the game was over. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt apparently also let go Elliot Wolf, the Executive Vice President of Player Personnel, remains with the team. Robert Kraft will speak at 1 o'clock this afternoon. In other NFL news, Jacksonville has officially fired head coach Doug Peterson this morning, but Giants head coach Brian Daboll is going to stay put. Oklahoma City Thunder won their 15th straight game. They beat the Celtics last night, 105-92. Green wrap up their road trip in Denver tomorrow night. And the Bruins lost their 4th straight game last night, 5-4 in overtime to the New York Islanders. They're back home to play Edmonton tomorrow evening. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Stone Foundation Repair. Is your Stone Foundation in need of waterproofing? Call Done Right Services. They used old school methods to fully restore and waterproof. Head to stonefoundationrepair.com and book today. I'm John Wallach at Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 9 o'clock.
You're listening to Toucher and Hardy on the
Party brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. And you know what's going on. The team now has the 4th pick in the draft and no head coach. And it looks like Mike Vrabel and the Crafts, they like him very much. He's a nice friend of theirs. And look, this might all turn out to be Super Bowl fever. But it does sound like the Crafts made this decision when they made the decision because of their interest in Mike Vrabel. And their interest in Mike Vrabel is at least partially due to them liking him personally and their connection to him, which does not excite me. But look, there's a lot of teams that have done a lot of things that have been better than any team I ever root for. So who am I to say? And I will not rain judgment upon Mike Vrabel until I acquire more information. I promise to you, the listener, I will not give ill-informed opinion, which I am not in a position to make an opinion right now. I just know his record is not overly impressive, and he did not get a job last offseason when there were many openings. Tim, go ahead.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Hello.
I watched that game yesterday. I wanted Milton to play. Reason why I wanted him to play, I watched all these guys in college. I'm a big college guy. I knew he could play. He just needs a good coach and a great offensive coordinator to grow him like the other guy was growing May.
Okay, let's stop. I was going to let everyone victory lap all over Milton. Milton's college coach is about as good as offensive mind as you're going to get in college. Milton had every advantage at Tennessee. Okay, so, but you just said he didn't have any offensive coaching. The coach at Tennessee's a brilliant offensive mind.
He's talking about the pro.
Okay. Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
All right, I agree. I'm just talking at the professional level. I want him to enhance his ability. He has ability.
Oh, yeah, he's got tremendous abilities. Yeah, he's just
all right, on Mayo, I think Kraft never gave this guy a chance to do what he needed to do from the CO to down below him, wherever. Anyway, he got nobody given to him. I mean, he had everyone given to him. He couldn't pick on his own. The thing is, Mayo, they didn't treat him properly. And the thing is, I wish him the best in the world because he tried the best he can. But he knew ahead of time, I guarantee you, he knew ahead of time when he was going to get fired because they would have never, ever let this kid just go wild with Milton scoring to get ahead of him.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I completely agree.
Buffalo tried to give the game. They were throwing the ball to pick it off.
Yep.
It was insane.
Yes,
but
they didn't try.
You guys are the best, man. I hope they do well. But Kraft doesn't have my gift no more, man. I think Kraft. I used to think he was a great person. I don't think he's as quality as he makes himself out to be anymore.
If he's making ill-informed football decisions, I don't know if that makes him a bad person. But I will say this, is I agree with everything, is that Mayo never stood a chance. There was no way. There was no way he was going to succeed given the structure of that team and what he had around him. You gave a guy with no head coaching. I mean, I felt bad for him. You gave a guy with no head coaching experience, a bunch of inexperienced coordinators except for Bob McAdoo, and no front office. Bob McAdoo, Hall of Fame basketball player.
Forward. Played here for a while.
I think he played for the Pistons for a while. But Bob McAdoo. And then you had a front office, by all accounts, that is run unlike any other NFL team, and it's sparseness. So you put a guy with no experience around an organization. Let's just simplify it as much as possible. You gave a guy with no experience an organization with nobody in it. Like literally, like positions that are not filled.
Correct.
Teams, so when it comes to in-game managing, apparently the Patriots have zero analytics department. Everyone else has got, people in their ear and all these guys all over the place, but Belichick kept his circle so tight to his own detriment at the end. And he almost became Howard Hughes-like with his little circle of guys and his not sharing of information and keeping everything precious, which in the short term can be effective, but is no way to establish power and retain power. I can assure you of that. You need to. The more you spread your circle, the better you'll do.
So now you have no head coach, probably going to let all the coordinators go. Everyone on both sides.
It sounds like they might get rid of Elliott Wolf. It sounds like they might get rid of everyone, and that's fine. But
stuck with the damn 4th pick in the draft.
But what I'm a little concerned about, and I can be convinced otherwise, because again I don't know, is that you're going to Mike Vrabel, who had a couple good years in Tennessee and a couple bad ones and a couple mediocre ones, and he took over a decent team. They were 9-7, 9-7 before him. They were 9-7, 9-7 his first 2 years. I don't know anything about him. I know he was great at Ohio State. Everyone loved him. I know that he was a great Patriot and everyone loved him. But he might be a good coach, but it sounds to me like they're about ready to hand over everything to him. Like, give him Belichick treatment. Like, you bring in the GM. You structure the whole front office. You bring in your coaching staff, or at least have a say in it.
Well, I don't have any reason to believe that they're automatically going to blow out Elliott Wolf if he doesn't get along with him. I would think that would be a priority to make sure the head coach gets along with him. But I think there's a difference between handing over the organization and allowing the head coach to, number one, hiring a head coach that has enough of a network where he can hire his own assistants,
staff, right?
And allowing that coach to do just that, which, had they allowed Mayo to do it, I don't know if he had enough of a network to do it anyway.
No, he didn't. They should have done it for him. They should have had someone in place that knew how to do it. That's the thing.
There's a distinction between letting a head coach hire his staff and handing over the organization to a head coach.
No, but they're talking about handing over the organization to Vrabel. I'm not talking about hiring his staff.
No,
of course you want him to hire his staff.
The extra
they're talking
step
about him
is-
if he doesn't get along with Wolf and he doesn't. We just talked to Phil Perry about it. If he doesn't like Elliott Wolf, they're blow out Elliott Wolf, and then with the assistance of Vrabel, build the organization in the front office.
Or at
his
the very
consult.
least, bring in the GM that Vrabel wants and have that GM build the organization.
But you have to build this whole organization well beyond your coaching staff. You have to build an entire structure and business model to operate, and you're bringing in Mike Vrabel to be the guy who does it. And it just seems like an awful lot.
Will the Kraft spend all the money that's
He's got a lot of work ahead of him. I'll grant you that if it ends up being him. But to think that they can't get rid of Elliott Wolf because it somehow gives too much power to Mike Vrabel. Okay.
No. That's not what I meant. If it came off that way, that's not what I meant. I just meant that you can get rid of Elliott Wolf, but maybe you could get rid of Elliott Wolf and put someone in charge and have them work in concert with the coach. It just seems like they like Vrabel. He's a good guy. He's been a head coach before. It sounds like they need a lot more help than that. Again, you talk to Bert, you talk to Phil, you talk to these guys. They're operating unlike any other NFL team. They just don't have positions filled. They don't have the positions. You're working with one hand behind your back because that's the way Belichick operated, because he liked to keep all the information precious, his circle very close. It's just not the way it was going to work. And it's not going to work for anybody. So it's all got to change. And I would like it if I was talking to Hardy off the air. If I was the owner, I would like to think myself not capable of doing that and not bringing in a guy.
Well, you're not.
I'm not.
No.
But I would know that. I would know I made my money in a way that I made it. And I know I've been around a team for a couple decades.
That might be your best quality, Fred. You have a firm understanding of what you can't do, which is a lot.
But you know what that's called? Street smarts.
What's it called?
Is that what it is?
What's it called?
Is that what street smarts is?
Yeah, ain't much for book learning, but when it comes to getting by on the streets, hustling,
Getting grimy, getting
Just
dirty.
know I can't do anything. I'm street smart.
yeah, exactly. That's right. That's why I got my posse. My posse's got my back.
Posse.
My posse, baby. All right, look, Bob Socci will join us. He sounded like a very wounded animal yesterday when he tried to call the end of that fiasco. We'll be back in just a moment.
Jerod Mayo is out. Who will be the next Patriots head coach? For up-to-date news and reaction, 98.5 The Sports Hub has you covered on air and online. You said you wanted to hear more music in the morning.
Never had to knock on wood, but I never had it yet.
Oh, you said you didn't want to hear more music in the morning. Okay. Here's more Toucher and Hardy on the Sports Hub.
5-yard penalty. Second down.
Lynette. The referee, and another penalty on Buffalo's second of the series.
We're going to win. We're going to win this game. Buffalo's just... Now Mike White's in the game. Just their approach. I mean, I know they were called timeout there before the end of the half, but they weren't really going anywhere.
Hey, we're Toucher and Hardy. Bob Socci. By the way, we're brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. For the base. Oh, rest in peace, Fife. Like 2-day-old what? Bob Socci, voice of the New England Patriots. Bob Soci's hot takes are powered by Bigelow Tea. If you want to know what keeps Bob's voice in peak condition, it's his hot cup of Bigelow Tea. Hot takes and hot tea, Bigelow Tea. Grab a mug and tea proudly. Bob, I heard the end of the game in the car, and I got to tell you, thank you so much because you gave us a break of content. You and Scott, the funeral procession, which was
So
the last
sad.
5 minutes of that win for the Patriots yesterday.
Well, I appreciate that, Fred. I left the house yesterday morning and I said to my wife that I hadn't been as nervous about a broadcast in a long, long time. And it was really just because of what I expected to be a very awkward way of calling the game, throughout the day and a situation at the stadium that was unlike any I've experienced in my time, as we heard at the end of the game with the fans voicing their displeasure with the outcome, the home team winning. So it was a strange day indeed after a very, very, very difficult week.
Yeah. At what point did you realize Buffalo had no interest in winning that game? In fact, was actively trying to do the opposite.
Yeah.
I think there were various points in the game where we were off the air debating whether or not, Sean McDermott in that case was, I don't want to say tanking, but at least doing less than the Bills' best as their head coach in terms of trying to win it. I think the real confirmation in the end, and it probably should have come sooner than earlier, but it takes me a little while sometimes to catch on, was the huddle up offense with about 4 minutes to go when the Bills were trailing with possession, and the complete lack of urgency in terms of their approach with the play clock as well as their play calling.
Well, and I guess along those same lines, Bob, at what point did you realize that the players who were on the field for the Patriots were actively trying to win, that they just weren't going through the motions? I mean, it could have been as early as Joe Milton's first touchdown, but when did you see that aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, Hardy, I'm going to say that I don't think the players were on the field for the Patriots. That shouldn't be the expectation for them. As disappointed as and angry as so many are about the outcome. If you're a player out there and you're put in that position, and you have to do your best.
There's no question about it. No one's debating that. Hardy's being funny, but it was no.
Well, but in a way, I'm kind of being serious, Bob.
No, but the Patriots tried and Buffalo didn't. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, and especially Joe Milton. I mean, on the play where you and Zoe understandably kind of lost your minds when Joe Milton spun out of. 3 different tackles and rolled to his left and it should have been a touchdown pass. I mean, that's the play of somebody who is not just going through the motions and certainly not trying to lose, but doing everything he can to win the football game. I mean, that was taking it like next level, that play.
Yeah, but the Bills players that play, the guys that are chasing him and the guys that are out there playing, they're not going through the motions. I think you're talking about the way the game is managed. That's where the outcome.
Well, in the defense that Buffalo's running, and the
personnel, the schematics of it. But when your players in that position, in that case, that's an improvised play. So right. I think the Bills players who are out there chasing him, and the Bills players are out there trying to make plays. A lot of those guys are playing for their futures as well. You talk about guys who are calling up from the practice. Well, this is an opportunity to get regular season tape out there to make maybe a case to the organization to bring you back on a futures contract, whatever it might be. So that's why I think that going through the motions. But I think we're getting off on a sidetrack that I think is secondary in my in my view.
Right. It's just the way that if you're Buffalo, you did what you had to do. First of all, you don't want to put anything on tape. Second of all, you don't want anyone to get hurt. And third, it would be nice if they didn't have the first overall pick in the draft. Probably the first two things before the third. And
I said it late in the game, Fred. One team lost by winning, the other team won by losing.
Right.
In a way.
Right. So, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, obviously the guys on the field in the system that they're in don't want to put tape out there that shows them not dogging it, obviously. But it could be frustrating, I'm sure. And it was frustrating for you guys just to see the way that whole thing went down, especially at the end of the game when Buffalo was actively not trying to win the game. Anyway, you guys had a sense before the game that Mayo was getting fired. It seems. Everyone around there, I was just talking to people that were around there before the game. I'm not saying you knew, but you had to have been getting little whispers that maybe that was a possibility.
Well, I think that, you look at the last month, and I went from being someone who thought it's never going to happen to it could happen. I wouldn't rule anything out. And then, yesterday I went up to the press box after my spot on the pregame show, and I was in the food line, and I saw Adam Schefter in front of the board with coaches' photos and verdicts, leaning in, leaning out, he's out. And I started watching closely, but I had already missed the top of that segment with Jerod Mayo and the reference to his future. And then as I sat down in the dining room and saw the recap graphic, in Schefter's opinion, the Patriots were leaning out. I think that was a strong indication to me. But also, as I walked around the field after that, as soon as I left the dining room and down to the playing surface and just walking around and being on the Patriots sideline, that was something that I could feel was palpable, feeling it, but also talking to a couple of people who were on the periphery of the Patriots organization in various support roles. And in other capacities and within the business office and so forth, I had a sense that that really was something that didn't necessarily shake them up, but like myself said, wow, this is probably going to happen, and so there was a heavy feeling with that. And then there were some other indications that to me internally, I thought might be signs that this was imminent.
So Mayo never stood a chance. I mean, really, the way that it was set up to him, it was set up for him to fail. I mean, they put an inexperienced guy with a bunch of inexperienced coordinators in an organization that just doesn't have positions, literal front office positions that other teams have. They just don't; those positions don't exist. I mean, in your opinion, was there any way Mayo was going to succeed this year? Not get fired, but succeed.
Well, I think if you look at what are the goals for success, and I think in his words early in the year before the season began, he said foundation, build a foundation. And I think when I look back on the last month, Fred, for me, and there's no question about there are a lot of different factors at play here, and you begin with the personnel on the field. But go back to the bye week. And that was a period when, in the case of most teams, you do self-scouting, and the Patriots had to do that. But also, I think it was a period of self-reflection. And to come out of the bye week with stated goals of learning about players, particularly young players, and their development, going back to that laying foundation goal at the outset of the season, building momentum toward the end of the year, being a team that no one else wants to play at the end of the season. And then they came out of the bye, and the performance against Arizona was nothing short of abysmal in a lot of ways. And some, I know, really questioned the effort. There was the post-game situation. You said it, I didn't. The ensuing walk back, and it was kind of a repeat experience, repeat error, if you will. Then you have an encouraging effort and performance against the Bills. And I said after that game to someone who's a regular on this program, and I said it as well subsequently during the Chargers game on the air, I thought the real indication of where this team was going and where they are would be the next game against the Chargers. Short week, holidays, challenge. You got to compartmentalize. You got to prepare for a tough physical team that's going to come in here with a little extra rest in the Chargers, who are playing with a playoff berth on the line. You expect them to be very well coached, They're a talented team, at least a quarterback, and they've got some things that are going to present problems for you. What will the effort be? And, and I think despite some of the inconsistencies and some of the things you go back on, whether 2-point conversion try or not going for it, kicking an extra point, whatever, those are things that I think you can recover from. But I thought like the performance against the Chargers, still in connection to that performance against the Cardinals, losing 40-7 before a half full stadium. The messaging publicly to the television and radio crews with Zoe's interview about Ramondre Stevenson not starting and then Ramondre being out there as the starter, the situation revolving Drake May, the way he was handled at the end of the game, comments by players in the locker room, Devon Godshaw saying that the run D was good after that performance, the comments about the fans booing, that they were spoiled. And I think that I get where the players were trying to come from in defense of their head coach. But to me, those on top of what happened later in the week with Jelani Tavai, if their intent was to defend their head coach because of the chants that the fans rung out at Gillette Stadium, I thought to a lot of people, they almost helped to add further indictment of kind of the culture and a slippage in standards here. When you go back to words of Jonathan Jones and David Andrews, guys who are connected to that championship past, when they were asked about the fans, if you want to change it, you got to play better. They pay good money here. There's no place like New England when you're winning, and it's tough. They hold you accountable when you're not. And I just think just the whole compilation of things, and coming to the stadium yesterday, and it's half full again, but a lot of those fans who are there are Bills fans, including many on the sideline. And it was a very difficult week, I think, for me, and I can't imagine what it was like for the people who've been around this organization and part of the building of what was so successful for so long to go through that experience.
All right. Well, look, it's funny that everyone keeps mentioning the Tavai comments because to me, what do you want the guy to say? I mean, he was asked directly about fans booing his coach, and he said, well, the fans don't know what they're talking about when they're booing my coach. I don't know. It just seems like if you're an adult, that wouldn't really bother you. But
no. Well, no. What I think is it goes beyond it. Like, you play in New England, you play in a marketplace that is accustomed to a certain standard of playing. Granted, there has to be patience, but I don't think anywhere you play you can say the fans have to know their place. And and I think it was the opportunity to try to assuage or at least show something more contrition with a follow-up in the locker room on Friday as well. And I don't want to get carried. I think that's just a piece of it to me. And again, I go back to words of guys who've been around here and part of winning teams. Tom Brady in the offense, and I mentioned this on the pregame show yesterday, they were booed off the field in December of 2019 at halftime against the Chiefs. They had won 3 Super Bowls and been to 4 Super Bowls in the previous 5 years. And asked about it afterwards, he said, that's sports. Got to play better.
But did they say fire Belichick, and were they asked directly about and put in position to defend the coach?
But I think the comments in general weren't just about the chant. They were about booing as well.
Right.
And
okay.
There are certain things, look, there are certain things that are, that everybody should be find objectionable, whether it's on social media or, from people in the stands that are, totally over the top offensive and inflammatory to a point where they get out of hand. And I completely understand that. And I generally side with players in situations, but I just thought that it was a bad set of circumstances for the organization, in my opinion, as somebody just, is kind of on the periphery, on the outside.
You're inside, baby. Don't worry about it.
Way inside.
And I got to learn about the guy that drinks all the beer in front of you, and he was very happy about the win
Drunk
yesterday.
fans.
Yeah. But again, you go back, Fred.
No, but there's an actual guy, he said.
Yes.
Zoe was talking about a guy. Who's the guy?
Bulldog is a big close. He's a very big close friend of Beatles and Zoe's.
He's the debit card guy, right?
Yeah, he has a debit card that budgets his beer.
Yes.
I don't know him well enough, Hardy, to know that.
Scott said it on the broadcast yesterday. What, are you going to get sued by Bulldog?
I don't think Bulldog's going to be too angry about that.
You know what? That's defamation. You said that I have a budget for beer.
You think Bulldog has a lawyer on speed dial?
I think it's a compliment. I think it's fiscally responsible of him.
Well, listen, Bob doesn't want to wade in these waters. These are very murky legal waters.
Controversial waters. Yes.
I have to tell you, Bob.
I mean, look, I just, I did, maybe I missed that part of it.
Oh, yeah, well, you did. You weren't paying any attention to your broadcast partner. Why not?
No kidding.
Hardy relates.
How do you think he's done it for all these years?
All right, well, listen, Bob, it was a great season, and you did a great job, and I think you expressed the voice of the fan very well yesterday with your calling the game, and tell your wife. I hope your wife told you that you did a very good job, because you did. Thank you for everything, Bob, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. All right, you take care. Have a great year.
Take care.
Take
Bob.
it easy. Well, a great year.
No,
Wow.
He's so long.
Jesus
so long.
Christ, Bob.
That's it.
Yeah,
I guess after this whole bulldog thing blows over.
I don't know anything about a debit card.
Fingers crossed.
I don't know.
He's like, look, I don't know. You guys, I don't know. My Bulldog's calling my phone. He's yapping and barking. He said,
he doesn't have opposable thumbs, because he'd send me an email too.
Oh no! Oh my golly! This whole Bulldog thing is gonna create a mess for me to clean. Get a mop, because I have to clean up your junk again.
I didn't have to poke him this time.
Now everyone knows where Bulldog sits in the stands. They're gonna overwhelm him.
I know it was Hardy who brought it up, but you didn't have to pile on like that. You got to know when to
That's
when
obviously
to
been
step
said
back.
to you. That's obviously you quoting things in reverse. Don't pile on. That's your responsibility, is don't pile on. Everyone loves it. Yeah. I'm just kidding around. All right, look. And I know I'm doing Fred's version of Baba Booey. I understand that. I can't help it. It's what I did in my personal life, and these two brought it on the air. It's their fault that I'm copying him. All right, so we'll be back in just a moment. Thrilling.
Half Hardy.
A big, beautiful ball of flame.
And a whole lot of Boston sports.
And I have had many offers to become an insider.
You know, I got an idea for a bit. The email bit. We should do the email bit. It's a great idea. Let's do the email bit.
Hey, on this big day for Patriot fans, you can always go to the 98.5 The Sports subpage to find out how to contact us. The Jets, here's just some NFL news. The Jets are not putting in a request, you'll be happy to know, for Ben Johnson. But they will talk to Aaron Glenn, who they will ultimately hire. Rex Ryan has said he doesn't know what his staff would look like if the Jets hired him.
Well, he's interviewing tomorrow.
Yes. And the Giants are keeping their GM and Brian Daboll, their head coach.
For some reason, Jacksonville fired Doug Peterson but kept their GM, Trent Baalke.
Right, and everyone knows why. Cousin Larry's influence in the building.
Sure.
Rex Ryan is like, well, there's Rob. Let me see who else. Who else could I get?
Well, there's 2 hot blondes downstairs that they could date if they get in with Baalke.
So Aaron Glenn, you've been talking about him for weeks, months, Fred. And even though the Lions defense was it's been hampered with injuries, last night that was an impressive performance. And that was against a pretty good team that is I do not envy them having to go to L.A. and play Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. I mean, that's a tall order for any team, and a real kick in the pants for a 14-3 team that was on the verge of being the number 1 seed. However, the Lions' defense last night showed you what you could even see in the games where they're getting scored on 30, 40 points. Those guys are playing for Aaron Glenn, and they're playing for Dan Campbell, which a lot of NFL players do. A lot of them are playing for their own incentives, and they're playing for their next contracts. But as a team, to a man, those guys swarm around the football and play with their hair on fire for 60 minutes. And last night, it resulted in holding Minnesota to 9 points.
Well, Minnesota missed how many opportunities early? I mean, I'm not saying the outcome would have been different, but the game sure as hell.
No,
Sam
Darnold
Darnold
played
well.
poorly.
I mean, Sam Darnold crapped himself on national
here's why
TV
you got to
last
give
night.
it. No one cares about this, but the reason that you got to give Aaron Glenn credit is because they knew that Darnold needs time to throw, and they kept pressure on, and it was ballsy because their secondary is so decimated, especially when the Arnold kid went down, their first round corner. That when he went down, it was ballsy to still go man coverage and put pressure on and blitz all the time.
Yeah.
And they put pressure on Darnold, and it worked because Darnold was terrible last night. And you can't argue that. Darnold was terrible, but you have to give some credit to Aaron Glenn. But anyway, on top of that, the Bears, Saints, and Jets are all interested in Aaron Glenn. So Aaron Glenn might be getting more heat than Ben Johnson this year, which I think is fair. I'd actually rather have Aaron Glenn. I think he has a better chance of being a head coach. Given his experience as a player and everything else, I think he's better head coaching shot than Ben
Minnesota's
Johnson.
offense also benefited from the fact that the refs were not paying attention to the play clock last night. Holy crap! Why have one?
Much to the chagrin of Mike
Why have a
Tirico.
play clock?
There was a blatant.
They do when Aaron Rodgers is quarterback. I can assure you of that. That play clock comes in. He just lets that thing run -20. There's a half second between looking in and looking at the ball. You don't. I mean, come on. They explained it last night. That is true. There was a lot of that. Chad, go ahead.
Hey, Fred.
Hey.
So this hot take isn't directed at you, but there's already been a lot of just people saying, well, you have to give Elliott Wolf and his staff another year. You can't fire the GM after 1 year. But they've been with the organization. They've had their fingerprints on previous drafts, like Groh coming out saying, you want fast, you got to draft fast. And they got Tyquan Thornton. So there's been examples where they just don't draft well. So it isn't exactly fair to say, well, you're only giving Elliott Wolf 1 year. No, they've been a part of this organization. They've had their fingerprints in this organization, and it's time to move on. Just bring in a brand new GM, brand new staff, and start fresh.
The thing is that if they're just going to go, we don't know what we're doing really without Bill Belichick, and the way that he was doing things was so antiquated to his own detriment and to the detriment of this franchise. And we have to restructure the way we do business entirely, like in terms of football operations. We have to restructure the front office. We have to hire positions that exist in other franchises and don't exist in our own. And they're willing to concede and humble themselves and say, this all has to change. Then, yeah, Chad, they can get rid of Elliott Wolf. Well, but if they're going to pretend like everything, that they're not blowing everything up, then well, here's the deal. They really screwed up this year, and they hired a coach that didn't stand a chance, and the GM didn't stand a chance, because now it doesn't seem like there's any. If they fired Elliott Wolf, there's really nothing he could have done. I guess if Polk was better and then you keep him. I mean, they didn't spend any money in the offseason as they shouldn't have. They drafted the quarterback, and look, you're right. You make a good point. Wolf was around when they made these other terrible drafts, but I put that. I don't know how much, but
Can I give one example, quick example?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, like last year, the third pick we all know was the Commanders. Before that draft, because people are already coming out saying, well, you can't fire Elliott Wolf, you can't fire Grove. They put all this legwork into the draft, and you'd be behind the eight ball. That's not true. Last year, the Commanders had the third pick. They had Ron Rivera, second pick, excuse me. They had Ron Rivera running the team basically and his staff, and new ownership said we got to start clean, get rid of everybody. They did their process for GM. They chose Adam Peters, who was under John Lynch and, Shanahan out of 49ers. So they liked the program they had out 49ers. They hired Adam Peters to come in and just start clean. And he hired his own coach.
No,
and
but
I know this wasn't exactly that.
Well, yeah, because they thought they had Ben Johnson. So the reason they ended up with what's his face is that
David Quinn, and then they got
because they thought they had Ben Johnson locked up, and Ben Johnson walked out at the last minute, and so they hired Dan Quinn, and everyone hated that hiring, by the way, which I didn't understand.
But my whole point of that was you're not behind the eight ball by just doing a proper search for a GM and coach. Yes, if you hired the coach first, it's not exactly the same as the Commanders. But this idea that if you get rid of Elliott Wolf because they put all this work in for the draft already, that's irrelevant, because the Commanders showed you can go from the second pick to the playoffs by just doing a proper search, getting the right GM and coach.
I think that the point that Reiss made about they have already put in the work for the draft was that you don't fire them today until you have your replacements lined up, because there is all that year of work that went into scouting. And I don't think you get rid of – if you bring in a GM, I don't know if it's possible you can get rid of all your scouting. Like in one off season – that you can have a guy just come in and hire and get a whole scouting staff from scratch that's been scouting the NFL to your specifications for that long. That seems highly unlikely. But again, we're getting really in the weeds of how organizations run.
Yeah, and I heard a bit about this over the weekend, that maybe 80% of the work for this year's draft is already done.
Yeah.
So you're going to either have to stick with the staff that you've got, or find people who have been doing the job on another staff.
Yeah, like it doesn't seem practical to me, right, that you could just fire everyone in your scouting staff and bring in a whole new scouting staff in one off season.
The combine, the interviews, all that stuff, that's a small percentage of the work that's already gone into this year's draft.
And by the way, there is now talk that Travis Hunter might not be the first receiver off the board. And so maybe everyone was clamoring for Travis Hunter.
So you like Ted McMillan? Or
I don't like anybody.
Everyone likes Ted McMillan of Arizona.
Yeah, I don't know any. That's what people are saying. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about Ted McMillan. And I've seen Travis Hunter play. I know he's good. But I'm starting to lean.
You don't want to say, much like the debit card situation, you don't want to tread in those waters.
I'm getting a little annoyed of people announcing like things like, well, when we get Ben Johnson. Like, that annoys me. Like, you don't know anything about Ben Johnson. Like, what the hell do you know? Or, like, so whenever someone's like, oh, well, this guy, in the draft, like, this guy, like, you don't know what the hell's going on in the draft. You read like me, like everyone else. No one knows. I hate when people, it's not local. I hate when people nationally it really bugs me when they go, like, well, then, and we'll fire Dayball and we'll bring in Ben Johnson. Huh? Dayball was Ben Johnson. What the hell do you know about Ben Johnson? You don't know. And on top of that, how many effing Lions games have you watched in your life? Right. What do you know? Not only do you not know anything about Ben Johnson, because none of us do. He's not the face of the organization. He talks to the media once a year. Not only do you not know anything about him, I bet you haven't even watched him coach. You don't know what the hell's going on. Making these blanket statements about, like, you know someone. Like, everyone thought Kevin O'Connell was the second coming when he got hired by Minnesota. I mean, I'm sure he was a hot coaching hire, but who the hell knows? No one knows. I don't like when now my thing is definitive statements based on no knowledge. And I mean, like the one I made about Joe Milton not being able to play. I mean, look at me.
Perfect example.
And I'll tell you, our own Jim Louth came in. He said, you flip him for a third-round pick. And I went, oh, here we go. Jimmy Louth has got himself a heart over his head.
Jim's a real smart guy, but when it comes to the Patriots, and Hardy, you can back me up on this, there's a curtain of blindness that kind of descends over him.
There's a tiny disconnect with the Patriots, yes. But if Jim
the man has a vintage John Hanna jersey in his closet.
Jim Louth told me with any degree of certainty that Joe Milton was going to be worth a third rounder in this draft, I would consider what he said.
I just think it's funny.
Sorry.
With an asterisk.
Like every GM was out there watching the game and we're like, you know what? This kid that we've known about for 7 years. Like that's
played one good game against the team that wanted to lose.
Third round pick.
Look, he played a lot better than I thought he would. And I knew he was very skilled. He played a lot better than I thought he would. And it certainly was funny to me in a self-deprecating way that he was playing that well yesterday. It also seemed odd to me. Not odd because I deserved the crap because it was funny. But it was just ironic that I'd been crapping on a guy and he had like an all-time game. But, you know, he also cost you the first pick in the draft. So, you know, I guess that's a sunny side of the whole Milton thing is that it made me look like a fool.
You mad at Joe Milton?
But that win was of no benefit to you. And maybe it's like the justification is like, well, now we'll get a third round pick for him. Like, I know we lost the first pick, but we'll pick. That's actually what Jim said. He's like, I know we lost a pick, but maybe we picked up a third round pick. No. None of that. None of that happened yesterday. Well, now we know we have a backup. Well, it was practice squad. I mean, I guess maybe you're comfortable with Joe Milton being your backup. I guess that's one way of looking at it.
Yep.
So,
that's what I thought. Oh, he can be maybe he's a serviceable backup.
Maybe.
Nice.
And who am I to say? Maybe. I mean, you have your franchise
next year. He's a veteran, Fred.
He's a veteran now, John. He's 27 years old or something. He's a veteran now. He's no kid.
Hey. Not everyone can spend 7 years in college.
6.
Sorry.
Stop exaggerating. There was the COVID year. All right. We'll be back in just a moment. Here are the headlines.
Restructuring of Jerod Mayo and the future of the New England Patriots. Robert Kraft faces the media at 1 this afternoon. We'll have it live, and you can talk about it all day on 98.5 The Sports Hub. What's the best way to listen to Toucher and Hardy?
Well, you're going to have to spend $40.
Cough it up, and let's get back to Toucher and Hardy on the Sports Hub. We know what you're thinking. What could I possibly have missed from the show? It's time for The Stack on top.
They have fired Jerod Mayo. The Jaguars have fired Doug Peterson. So now you have the Saints, Jaguars, Patriots, Jets, and
Bears. Who had, by the way, requested Ben Johnson as of this morning.
There you go.
And Giants are retaining Brian Daboll.
And you're telling me Indianapolis is retaining their
Shane
coach.
Steichen,
Shane
yes.
Steichen as well. So what could open? So the Dallas could open?
Yep. Well, I was reading something overnight that now it seems inevitable that Jerry's going to bring him back.
Mm.
He did say something that his position was unchanged and that he has, confidence and blah, blah, blah. But
so Vegas is on the line.
Yep.
Vegas is another opening that could happen, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So Vegas would be the other one. So if you're the Patriots, there's not as much competition as there was up to 8 or 9 people were saying.
Dallas Star-Telegram. After today, the question isn't if Jerry Jones brings Mike McCarthy back. It's how. Two very telling quotes from Jerry today.
The gold rose.
I don't know if I'm considering making a change. It's a given that I've decided if we're sitting around talking about a deal, it's a given. So McCarthy's coming back again.
I wouldn't fire McCarthy if I was him.
what about McDaniel in Miami?
Coming back.
I know he's coming back, but what would you do with McDaniel?
I would keep him. He didn't have Tua. I mean, he didn't have his quarterback. And yesterday they quit. As soon as they saw the scoreboard of that Denver game, they quit that game, and they just let Rodgers have it.
Did you see Tyreek Hill after the game yesterday? Basically said that he was out. He was leaving.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill, I wouldn't put – if I was the GM or Mike McDaniel, I wouldn't even think about it for 2 seconds. I'd just be like, good, whatever he said, he said. I mean, who cares? Just let him say whatever he wants after a loss.
Yeah.
And now the season's over. The playoffs start. No one's going to be talking about this. Get it out of his system. Go ahead.
So we've been 99% Patriots, Jerod Mayo, Joe Milton this morning. Couple of things we didn't get to. The Bruins, who have now lost 4 in a row with a 5-4 overtime loss to the Islanders.
But was that really a loss yesterday? I mean, they did come back from 2 goals down.
Earned a point.
And
got a point.
Themselves that point.
Okay.
And they did dominate overtime. You have to give them that.
David Pastrnak, 2 goals in the third period.
And
he looked good.
And as I saw it only on Twitter last night, and I watched not one dribble of the Celtics game against Oklahoma City. Yeah, you watched it, Wallach?
I did.
Wallach has to watch it because he could get called in case Grandy dies.
Okay, so
I stick a pin in that voodoo doll every day.
That's bad mojo. Don't even say that.
As somebody said, Celtics let go of the rope late in that game in their 105-92 loss.
I disagree. Oklahoma City's that good. What happened was the Celtics were up by 10, and then the second half started, and Oklahoma City started playing. Oklahoma City didn't have Chet Holmgren yesterday, and the Celtics had everybody for like the third time all year. And Oklahoma City ran them off the floor in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's a tough part of the road
Sounds like they let go of the rope.
Didn't let go of the rope. Oklahoma City beat them into submission. It's a difference.
You know who has benefited from a beard more than almost any other man I've ever seen is Chet Holmgren.
I thought you were going to say Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. It was a gin-soaked beard of his as he drunkenly stumbled around the talk show circuit.
Well, Ernest and Julio Gallo.
Oh, yes, that is true. And very angry at the director of that. But I'll tell you, if we're talking about a thing on YouTube. But the Chet Holmgren looked like a dorky stork. And then all of a sudden, him and that Shane Gilgeous-Alexander are in a commercial together, and he's got a beard. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
We got a man here.
That's right.
So I like that.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, 33 points, 11 rebounds yesterday. And the scary thing is, the moment is never too big for that guy. He looked really good down the stretch. Hit big shot after big shot. This team was really good last year and stumbled into playoffs. If they make it through and they're in the NBA Finals and you have to play them in a 7-game series A, going to Oklahoma City is not easy because of that building. The fans are crazy in there. But B, that team is spectacular. They're 30-5.
Adam, pull that. John making the statement. That could be a future NBA Finals matchup. Look out.
Why don't do that to him?
That's just mean.
Yeah.
That's all that is. That's mean. I'm inheriting my.
You did say it with a certain amount of gravitas that I don't think
You're saying
deserved.
the team that's won 15 in a row, that's number one in the West,
I see.
could be facing the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean I'm
I
right.
respect you, but you suck. I understand.
I didn't say you suck. I said it annoys me that you watch all the games. It bothers me, and I don't know why. Okay. It bothers me that you are over-prepared for that stuff.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm not watching the Denver game tomorrow night. That's a 10 o'clock start.
It's work ethic.
If you did, I'd be pissed off at you if you watched that game.
It's a work ethic and ambition that really gets under Fred's skin.
Yeah, I don't care for that.
Apparently, yes.
I don't care for that.
Well, I like that Wallach kid. He works hard.
Very quickly.
That never stop putting words in his mouth. Go ahead.
Either one of you aware of any of the Golden Globe results?
No.
The only Golden Globes I like are B. Arthur's.
There you go. $1 if you can tell me the film that won for Best Picture, Musical or Comedy.
I've seen
Fast and
a lot of
Furious
9.
9.
I've seen a lot of movies.
10, sorry.
The only movie considered good that I saw was My Old Ass, and there's no way that won. So
That's 1-0. Amelia Perez.
Of course.
Was that in theaters?
I don't know.
Movies are in a real bad spot, man, because I'd see some of these movies. I saw that Bob Dylan movie I was telling Hardy off the air. That Bob Dylan movie is really good.
Best Motion Picture Drama. The Brutalist.
If these were in theaters, people would see them.
I don't know. I mean, it was nominated
used to not be like
alongside
this.
at least Dune Part 2, but that's the only other movie I've heard of.
Like, these are not released in regular theaters. Like, these are West Newton Cinema things or online.
Best Television Series Drama, Shogun. Oh,
Yeah.
we all watched Shogun.
I don't watch it, but I'm aware of it.
I'm aware of it.
It's what everyone says. It sounds a lot like The Wire. It sounds like I need to be much younger and have less ADD to sit down and consume that thing. That's a lot of time.
And, of course, there was a win for everyone's favorite comedy.
I know what won, and it's terrible. I've actually seen it, and it's not good.
Hacks?
Hacks is not funny.
Okay, so I was going to say there was a win for the best male actor in a comedy, and that was for, what's his name, and the hysterical...
Oh, The Bear?
The Bear.
They're doing just to spite people now.
That's so funny, The Bear. It's a comedy.
If you were the creator of The Bear, wouldn't you be a little aggravated that it's in the comedy category and winning?
Yes.
Like, isn't the whole idea that it's supposed to blow you away with its art and cinematic brilliance?
Yes.
It's cinematography. It very rarely, unless you think swearing's funny, and that just cracks you up. The banter between the people of the sandwich shop in Chicago that has become our generation's Cheers. Cheers to you, The Bear, for another Golden Globes win.
Wow. That's it. Got to let you go.
Leave the gym on a make, Fred.
And with that, good luck rest of the day.
All right, man. I got to let you go.
You're not going to have any more quips like that because the talent is leaving now. Bye.